welcome to Two Nobodies with the Mic. Consider your say, great job, 49ers!
The five best players ever in the NBA, Kobe Bryant is not one of them.
Probably, you can't say anywhere that he doesn't belong in the league. Give me that amount of money, and I'll do whatever you want me to do.
Josh Allen will never make the playoffs again.
The SEC is straight trash.
This fool was a crumb bum.
Oh, he was in one of those vests? Yeah. What's up, everybody, and welcome to Two Nobodies with the Mic, episode 79. Guys, we are on a skeleton crew. Half of our cast is in Vegas watching Justin Timberlake.
Must be nice, you know.
I don't know, man. That's kind of suspect.
Are they getting paid off? Are they getting paid for that?
They're definitely
using their sick hours.
Is it 6 hours? Vacation time?
Yeah, they had sick hours. Anyways, guys, thank you for joining us. We are live on YouTube right now, and we have some very, very special guests in the house. Let's go over who we have right now. Executive producer Eddie Money's in the house. What up, man?
What's up, man?
We have co-host and a family member. Hakatomi Plaza is in the house. What up, man? Yes.
That's a salute, by the way.
Wow.
If you're not watching, you're just
And
listening.
guys, you guys are no stranger to this man. He's been on the show several times, but he's going to join us the whole entire show, hopefully. Mr. Ryan Holmes, host of A2A Academy. He helps out with Intermat Wrestling. You can find him on YouTube. Nephew of the great, legendary heavyweight champion Larry Holmes, and just super knowledgeable about whatever I don't know, maybe stocks, spawns. How you doing over there, Mr. Holmes?
Doing great. I wouldn't go as far as saying stocks and bonds. Math ain't really my thing, man. I stick to the words. That's why I got the degree in journalism and not in accounting.
Well,
There you go.
That's fair.
fair enough, but versatile. I'm going to say versatile. How about that?
That works for me.
All right, man. Well, we are the gambling show of record, guys. We are not afraid to talk gambling, but we only have one rule, Eddie Money, on the show. And what rule is that?
Don't be a loser.
Do not be a loser, guys. And when we say that, just be responsible. Don't be a loser and lose your child's milk money for the week. That's the only rule we have. Episode 79. We're on the verge of finally getting out of offensive linemen.
Yeah.
We're
And
almost there, man.
yeah, we're almost there.
Next
Counting
episode,
the
we're
days.
Out of jail next week.
So, Mr. Holmes, I don't know if you know this, but every episode we go over a famous athlete who wore the number of the episode. 79, Slim Pickens. I could only think of a left tackle coming out of Central State, played for the Cowboys. Eric with the K. Williams, stud, 3-time Super Bowl champion, 4-time first team All-Pro, was a staple in that incredible offense line with Nate Newton and that crew. Anyone else have any famous 79s?
I have my most famous 79.
What is that, Eddie Money?
Me, freshman year.
Let's go.
Oh, St. John Bosco.
Go
Yes.
talk. Go talk. Let them know.
Oh my God! What
Gold team, not the blue team. Gold team.
Let's
the goal? Oh, so St. John Bosco has a blue team and a gold team.
Basically,
Freshman year, yeah,
It's basically
Like
who
a-
they're looking at to be on varsity and everybody who joins for fun.
Oh yes, right. That's the thing to do. You're a freshman. I can play football, and then
Yeah, and then you realize people get held back for the sport.
That's every sport, actually. Now.
yeah, that is a thing. Mr. Holmes could tell you, holdbacks are a thing.
Fun fact, I learned, I don't know if many of you people know what powerlifting is, but I learned that people in Texas get held back for powerlifting. Just to lift
Really?
heavy weight, basically.
Well, speaking of Texas, that Ryan Holmes, are you live and direct from Austin, Ryan?
I
Right now,
am right here in Austin, Texas. Yeah.
what made you move to Austin? I mean, was it flow? What was it exactly?
Originally, it was Flow. Yeah. In 2014, I moved to Austin to work for Flow. And I was there for 7 years. And then, that little demic hit us a little bit. And
a little bit.
I was like, let's get out of here. My family is back on the East Coast. So I headed back to the East Coast and was with family for a little bit. And then, the thing ended and like, all right, I'm tired of the snow. So let's get out of the snow. I was comfortable in Austin. So my girlfriend actually came with me and now I've been here since August. So it's starting to get a lot hotter again too. We're about to hit them triple digits probably in the next month.
Oh my goodness.
He's about to start cooking outside with his pan on the sidewalk.
There you go, man. There you
Doing
go.
his eggs on the rock.
Yeah.
So let's get into our segment that usually we get right into. It's called You're Fired. And this is where we hypothetically hire or fire someone that got on our nerves this week. Eddie Money, you want to start us off with You're Fired?
Yeah, I'll start off with I'm firing Shaq. I love
Ooh.
Shaq. Just saw a statue last night, but mostly for when he was talking to Jokic, and he says, "Congrats, but you didn't deserve it." Basically, is how the conversation went, and then he turned it to himself. I just feel like it could have been worded a lot better. And Shaq's done this several times. He's done this with Donovan Mitchell too. When he was on the Jazz, he's like, "Man, you're a great player. I really like the way you play, but you're just not there yet." And he was like, "Okay."
Here's the thing, and here I'm a Shaq. I'm a big fan of Shaq.
Yeah, you're a Shaq defender.
I'm a Shaq defender. It's just that Shaq should have won. I think like God, who was the point guard? Steve Nash. Like Steve Nash won it. Shaq should have won it like 4 times, but he was so dominant that they didn't give him the MVP because it was almost like it was unfair. I still think he's just, really bitter about that. So anytime anyone wins, like did he say who he thought?
Yeah, he's an
It's
SGA.
SGA, which he was second, I believe, in the voting.
Yeah. By the way, Jacob called that preseason.
Yeah.
You did call that
I
Hakatomi
called
Plaza.
that, and I called OKC being the best team in the West.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
Well,
who's keeping count?
who's keeping track of that stuff anyway?
well, good firing. Hakatomi Plaza.
Yeah, I have one. I want to fire the Madrid haters. People are saying again, "Oh,
Real Madrid.
Real Madrid paying the refs. Here we go again." If you watch that game, Real Madrid earned that win.
Oh, they had a goal called back.
Not even that, but everyone's talking about how Bayern at the end of the game had that shot off and they called offsides.
Listen,
Well, first of all, he was offside, so it didn't matter whether it was called then or later in VAR. But that game should have been stopped like 5 minutes before that.
oh yeah, they did extra time.
They
and
had +9. It went to like +15, almost 16.
almost 16 minutes.
So that game should have been stopped a long time ago. They
Yeah,
earned that win, and then I'm tired of the hate. I've seen a lot of it on Twitter. I'm done with it. They earned that win. We're going to the finals. Let's fucking go.
well,
There, I said it.
there you go. Totally understandable. Mr. Holmes, do you have anyone? I know it's late notice. Any hires or fires this week for you?
Fires this week. I think I would go with Jamal Murray.
That's
I
a
don't-
great one,
That's
actually.
a great one.
I'm gonna
Honestly,
back
it's some serious bullshit to not throw something on the court once, but twice.
Yeah.
Like, you got these dudes out there absolutely grinding. You missed the first time with the towels. Now you're going to throw a heating pad out there. And that's even worse because the guy could have slipped on the heating pad. And like, you take full responsibility for it. But, once I say you're just, all right, it's a little lapse in judgment. Twice, you're just being an asshole. So for me, it would be Jamal Murray. And I like that he didn't get, he only got fined. I think it was like $100K. That's like pocket change to this guy.
Yeah.
But like, still, like, that you're a professional, act like a professional. Everybody likes to say, act like you've been there before when people are celebrating and shit. But like, no, you're a professional, act like you've been there. That's especially in the playoffs. That's not something that you need to be doing, even if you're losing.
I support.
And the thing is, too, he threw a mid play. Like, play was still going on. It wasn't like play stopped yet. He threw it mid play. People are still trying to go for rebounds, trying to get the ball. Like, that could have been really bad.
He had some good moments in the Lakers series, right? He had a couple game winners, but if you look at his numbers, he has really struggled in the playoffs. And the frustration is one thing, but like Ryan said, dude, once, is okay, relapse in judgment. Twice, you're being an a-hole and you just got fired on 2 nobodies.
That's right.
Rightfully so.
Worse than a fine.
I'm going to continue the theme, and I'm going to fire Doc Rivers' son,
Austin Rivers.
Austin Rivers. Big news this week, set the whole world on fire. He came out and claimed on a show that he does that 30 players in the NBA right now could just transition and play in the NFL, and vice versa. They could not do that. And I mean, it set everyone on fire. And to me, the only reason Austin Rivers even is on any kind of show is because of his dad.
That's not true.
First round pick. Let's look. No.
That's not true.
Listen, Austin Rivers, I believe he was a 10th pick in the first round. Was a star at Duke, was
He had
a big
good
name.
NBA career.
Really?
It wasn't.
Look at his stats. He averaged 9 points a game.
What
He
is
did
that?
not have a good NBA career.
Did
Okay,
not.
It doesn't matter. Why does that have to do with having a point on NFL or NBA talk? Like, he was asked a question, he answered it. Like,
Was it a question that he was asked, or did he brought up the point?
I don't remember how exactly it went, but people are saying, "Oh, this discredits his opinion." But I think his opinion is fine. Like, I don't think it's a crazy take. I don't think it's that crazy enough to fire him.
Well, here's the thing. He keeps, James Jones has gone after him, gone back and forth. The thing is, listen,
JJ Watt too.
yeah,
And the thing is, okay, so JJ Watt went after him, and
He
then
walked it back though.
and then finished it and said, "By the way, I can't play in the NBA." So you're only for proving his point that I think he's not crazy to say that. I think there's some truth to it.
well, it's tough for me to say this is America. We definitely have opinions on this show. I just think he had the opportunity to kind of walk it back, and he's doubled down several times. And when you do that, when you put your opinion out there like that, be ready for some pushback. And he's gotten pushback, and I don't think he's handled it very well. And we'll get into that later. We're going to get into that later, but that is you're fired. Some good firings there. What else we got on the agenda, Eddie Money? What's on the docket for today?
So, main thing we wanted to talk about with Ryan Holmes was last week. We kind of touched on it a little bit. Jacob wasn't here though. Is the new Anthony Edwards uprising in the league and on social media? There's been a lot of talks. Obviously, like more jokes that Anthony Edwards is Michael Jordan's long lost son. But people have like Stephen A are actually starting to put him in this category of Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant with his recent performances in the playoffs. I just want to know your thoughts on that. Last time you said you're a Jordan guy, so I want to see where you stand on it.
Yeah, I think he's got a long way to go before that. I mean, I will give him his props though. Like, he is a better 3-point shooter than Michael Jordan, but the three is bigger in today's game than it was in Jordan's game. Jordan was more of a mid-range guy. Better handles than Jordan too. Jordan wasn't really known for his handles. He was more known to, score the basketball, and his defense, obviously multiple time defensive player of the year. So I wouldn't put him in the category with Jordan just yet. He's 22. You know what I mean? Like, he's got a long time to go, but he is ahead of Jordan on pace. At least he's on pace for a championship right now, right? Jordan didn't win his first title until he was 27 or 28.
Year 7, I think.
Yeah. So it took him a while. But I mean, I will give him his props. Like, Edwards is dynamic. There was the one dunk where they called it a charge. It was the dumbest thing ever. It was dunk of all time.
Nasty.
Yeah. It was nasty. And everybody in the gym was just like, why are you jumping with him right now? But it was one of the nastiest dunks ever. And that's when I truly became a fan, because I was like, this man has just reckless and no regard for anybody's life when he's coming down the lane. So I'm a huge fan of him, but I think he's got a long way to go before he hits that Michael Jordan, Kobe status. He's got a lot more to do. I mean, he averages 23, 5 and 4 right now. I think it is. He's good. He is very good. Absolutely dynamic. But he's still not there yet.
I mean, he came out today and he basically said, please stop doing this. Yeah. Please stop. I mean, he gets it. He doesn't belong there yet. I think this is more so of Joker fatigue, especially Joker winning the MVP again. And, him not looking, I mean, he was great all year, but it looks like Joker and the whole entire Nuggets, they look sluggish. They look slow. They look old, and I think this is just a case of the NBA and the United States really begging for someone to take the torch. LeBron now hasn't won in how many years? Since 2020, right? He's been the face of the league for 20 years. KD now on the backside of his career. The NBA needs a personality. And if Joker was funnier or had more charisma,
Or if he just wanted to be there.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
He just don't even give a shit. enough.
Yeah, he doesn't give it. He never gave anything. He just.
I just think we're all begging for the next guy, and I do think it's too early for Ant. But the comparisons, especially I've seen where they split the two faces.
Yeah.
It's kind of freaky. They do look a lot
It is
alike.
pretty spot on, honestly.
The play style and his fadeaways are, and even his shooting style is
Yeah,
very pinpoint
yeah.
exact.
Who do you got tonight, Ryan? Winning. You have Minnesota going up 3-0.
Yeah, they're on a roll right now. I was watching the Pacers game a little bit earlier too. The Pacers were just killing it. So, I mean,
Right now they're tied at 99 with 7 minutes left.
really, they were shooting the lights out before.
Mhm.
They were hitting on everything. But no, I do have them. I think Edwards takes them to the finals. At least that's kind of, I mean, as a fan, that's kind of what I would like to see. And I feel like they're pushing Edwards too because Zion didn't work out.
Yes.
Because Zion was that next unicorn. He was that guy that was going to come in and just be LeBron-like, dunking on everybody, doing these highlight dynamic plays and everything else. And he didn't work out. He was injured. He was fat. He was injured.
He quite literally didn't work out.
Like he just did not exactly like
Literally did not work out.
and then what? There were a couple of porn stars that are in there, and it's just like not a good look for the league. So they're like, all right, we need a squeaky clean, good personality dude with charisma. Because like you said, Joker doesn't want to be there. He's also the last MVP that got swept in the in playoffs was Joker. So like, you need a guy that's going to be ultra dynamic, right? And I think Edwards can certainly do that. But yeah, I was just like, Zion didn't work out. He was the unicorn. He was the guy busting through shoes, in college. Like they were like, look at the myth of who Zion is. And then he got to the pros and was like, I'm making my money now. Like I'm gonna go hit this double whopper real quick and not hit the gym.
New Orleans was not a good spot for him.
I don't know how true it is, but Stephen A. Smith said that all the chefs in New Orleans love Zion. Like they all know him. But I don't know how the validity to that.
I wouldn't doubt.
That's like Lemon Pepper Lou in Atlanta.
Yeah, they all know who that is.
There you go.
On the same kind of trajectory of that, if the Nuggets, if they get swept in the playoffs this year, is it the end of their dynasty, and is it the beginning of the Timberwolves if they win it this year?
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say it's the beginning for the Timberwolves. I would say it's a really good season for the Timberwolves, right? Like it's a moment, right? Like it's a moment in their career. And everybody knows how hard it is to win a title and win a championship, especially in the NBA, where there's now thresholds on how many games you have to play to be an MVP. And, they're holding guys out. Like it's tough on their body. There's a lot of travel. I wouldn't say that it's like the beginning for the Timberwolves. I would say it's a really good season. I think in order for it to really be the beginning of an ascension, they would have to continue to do it, right? That's kind of, being consistent is what brings greatness, that whole greatness stamp to a lot of people. On the other side, I don't think that it would be particularly terrible for the Nuggets, but it would be the second time that they've been swept in, and like I said, Joker was the last MVP to be swept in the playoffs. So it would be twice for him where he's MVP and is swept. So I don't think it would be the end, but it would definitely put them on like a downward shift.
Yeah.
And the thing is with the NBA, I think now there's so many young teams coming up. Like OKC is still the number 1 seed. Like they can still win. I mean, they might not, but they might. But there's so many players now from Europe. There's so many players now from the US. I think it's much harder to be a dynasty because there's so many good teams now. And I think it's so spread out that next year it could be a whole different winner next year. I don't think it's going to be where it's like Golden State Warriors 1-3 or 1-2, went to 3, and LeBron went to his. It's going to be different now. I think you'll get a team in the finals almost every year because it's so competitive now. It's when players coming from Europe and the US.
Well, especially if you're talking Eastern Conference. I mean, let's talk a little bit about how bad the Boston Celtics looked yesterday against the Cavs. I don't know. I don't want to say that I called them not being soft or I mean, they've just rolled everybody and had the best record in the NBA. But my God, who saw that coming? Ryan, did you see that the Cavs doing that in Boston, just putting it on the Celtics?
No, didn't see it coming. Not one bit. Because, like you said, Boston's been rolling throughout the season, and it's happened before, right? When you get in that position where you're like, oh shit, it's gonna happen again. You're like, we got to change something. We got to tighten something up, right? So you would think that you would learn from your past mistakes, but apparently not. I mean, there's still a lot of game to be played, right? There's still plenty of game to be played, but history is repeating itself, and you don't want to start going back down that road because you can coincidentally start to get into old bad habits, and that's not what you want.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone saw a loss coming. Even Matthew Rocha just said that. So is Tatum kind of on the similar topic of the Celtics? Is Tatum not as good as everybody thinks he is? Because in the playoffs, he has been shooting absolute bricks, and they've still been blowing teams out.
I believe Jason, he's just an enigma, man. I think if you look at talent wise, I mean, top 3 in the league. He could do it all. He could do everything. He could shoot, get to the hole, play defense. He's long. But as big as a fan as he was, right? His idol was Kobe Bryant and wanted to be a Laker. He lacks that instinct that Michael Jordan has, that killer instinct that Kobe had. I feel like it's the one thing that Jason Tatum's missing. When and this will be a big game to see if he can bounce back. And like you said, it's only game 1, but my gosh, what a bad sign.
It's game 2, right?
Game 3.
Yeah.
Well, so
yeah.
Right now they're 1-1.
Yes, it's 1-1. My bad.
Yeah, Matthew said that when you brought up Kobe, that Anthony Edwards is the closest thing to Kobe and Jordan that we've seen in a while. And I guess from Tatum looking up to him so much, you don't see any resemblance.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's true. That's a very valid point, and I guess they spend time training. Kobe and Tatum spend time training together. Really, Kobe was trying to mentor Tatum, and it just hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened specifically in the playoffs, right?
Michael Brown goes, Celtic lost 1 game. Let's calm down.
That's what I've been saying. I think that their team is so much superior than anyone in the East that not that they're thinking it, but they know that, all right, like we can pretty much run through this conference. Even losing 1 game won't hurt that much, but losing at home by 24 points is terrible. Yeah. I agree. But I do think I think they still will run the East pretty easily.
You still think they make it to the finals?
Yeah, there's no one. I don't think anyone can come close to beating them.
I don't know. I feel like everyone always thinks that like every year, and then somehow, some way, they just choke.
I can't get out of my head.
And like they have, I feel like for the past several years, they've had the best roster.
Yes,
and everyone's agreed they've had the best roster season.
From 1 to 10.
I would say that if the Knicks were completely healthy, but they're not. They're missing 2 players now, and Brunson's not fully healthy. So even if the Knicks did make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, I think they would still be shorthanded against a stacked Boston roster.
Yeah, also Knicks starters play every single minute.
Every single minute of the game. They only played like 6 guys.
Yeah, I think the rotation is 7, and it's crazy.
Yeah. Like Josh Hart played every minute.
Yeah, Josh Hart hasn't sat.
So
it's wild.
That can't sustain. It just can't. I mean, Boston should win the East pretty easily. Even with this hiccup against the Cavs, I still think they'll win in probably 5.
Well, let's revisit, if you would. Let's revisit.
Michael Brown laughed at him. The thought of just the Knicks or Pacers being in the finals. He goes, "No way."
Yeah, like it sounds terrible to even think that they can make the finals.
Well, I mean, that was a thing in the '90s for me.
I mean, but they were good.
Patrick Ewing, Reggie Miller. I mean,
they were really good.
That's a totally different era.
Yeah. I mean, Rocha said that Porzingis, they don't have Porzingis right now. That's a big factor.
Yeah, that's a big factor too. But is he out for the rest of the playoffs, or is it just
No, he has a
game
chance to
game?
come back.
Yeah.
So he's not out right now.
You know what I saw too? This is random, but when Reggie Miller was calling the Knicks game, Pacers last game, the whole Knicks crowd was chanting "F you, Reggie," and he's calling the game.
Oh, dude, it's
so
like
great.
I'm telling
That's
you,
amazing. I
that
love
was
it.
Yeah.
if you go back in history, Spike Lee, Reggie. I mean, they would the beginning of trash talk from fan to star player. That series is legendary.
It's funny because he's calling the game, and you can hear it in the crowd. They're chanting "F you, Reggie."
Yeah.
It's so great.
It's pretty
Yeah,
good.
that was like you said, the Spike Lee, Reggie Miller, that was one of the most epic games. Reggie hits like a couple of threes to end it, sends the choke signal over to Spike Lee. Like that was
great.
epic. That was like peak 90s basketball.
Yes. Which everyone in this new era likes to shit on all of a sudden. Like,
the 90s.
no one.
We done with the 90s.
Yeah. Straight trash.
Good thing Rafa's not here.
Garbage.
Yeah, Rafa would go off right now.
Garbage. I mean, everyone likes to bring out these highlights. It's very exclusive.
By the way, Ryan, Rafa is not a big Edwards fan.
No.
As you can, I'm sure you would guess that anyways.
Yeah, because they're making Jordan comparisons. If they said he was more like LeBron, he'd be like, bow down to Ant Edwards.
Jacob made a joke in the group chat, and then it's halftime. They're down by like maybe 5, and Rafa goes, "Hey Jacob, you see this? Michael Jordan would never be down 5. Don't ever make these comparisons. You can't find a game where he's ever like this."
Oh my god,
Yeah, it was
the hate is real.
Yeah, Rafa's not a fan, but I think Rafa with Rafa too is that ESPN blows it up so much. Like they cling
Force
on
feed
to
it.
a guy so much, and it does get like, come on, man, it's a little much. So I do get that part too.
Well,
Yeah,
let's go ahead.
It's a heroes and villains kind of a thing, and it's what they need to keep people watching. It's why you see more debate shows on ESPN and less highlights now.
Oh,
because they need heroes and villains. That's
Yes.
exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like Anthony Edwards is just like a great character. So hilarious.
Yeah, he's
especially
funny.
him like air banging in front of Kevin Durant. That shit was fucking hilarious.
Oh yeah.
I can't imagine like Joker doing that.
No, he would never.
No, he would never. But let's revisit this whole Austin Rivers thing.
Oh, sorry. Before we move on, Matthew Roach is throwing some good questions. He says he dislikes how the main difference between the 90s and now is that he dislikes how NBA players are all friends with each other. You don't see the off-court rivalry as much as you did in the 90s.
Oh, well, yeah,
that's a fact.
Yeah,
that is
Isaiah Thomas still holding a grudge.
Yeah, my goodness,
against the world.
Everyone, he hates everybody.
Yeah, I mean the Bird, the legendary Bird, just talking shit to everybody, telling you where he's gonna go next. None of those guys.
Barkley and Jordan don't speak anymore either.
Yeah.
That was post playing, but like that was Jordan's
crazy.
GM days and ownership days where Barkley said something that Jordan didn't like, but like that
remember.
carries over. That mentality just continues to keep going.
Yeah, Matthew also added, if Bird and Magic played now, they would be caught hanging in the summertime together. Jordan and IT would be homies.
There you go.
I don't doubt it.
I feel like Kobe was the last one to have that mentality where he was trying to kill you on the court and had no interest hanging around you off the court. Like he didn't have very many friends. A lot of respect, but not very many friends. We all know the story, even when it came to the Olympics, where he runs through Paul Gasol, one of his best friends, and just
uncle to his children.
yeah, and just blew him up first play. So
I love that documentary.
Yeah, respect to the old school way of playing basketball. That being said,
Michael Brown is a fan of Anthony Edwards. He says he seems like a killer. I don't think he seems like a killer.
He doesn't have enough on his resume yet to be a killer.
I like him, but I don't like the comparisons.
The resume's not there yet. I mean, he had one game, that game 2, where he really showed taking over a game. I've seen many games this year where he has disappeared in the fourth quarter. So it's just not there yet. It's too early. We all want it to happen. Whether it's going to happen or not, it's up to Anthony Edwards.
He also has the defensive player of the year several times on his team, and has another 7-footer that can shoot threes.
Yeah,
He has a great team
Cat,
around him.
I believe, Cat came out in the beginning of the season and said, I'm this good, I'm this. And, he's really showed up,
Yeah, he had to show up defensively in order for them to do anything. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I think Edwards, it's now where he's gonna have to show up. Like there's gonna be that make or break moment in his resume where we'll see the killer now, right?
Yes.
Because we're gonna have to see it. It doesn't get any easier from where they're at now. So at some point they're gonna be like, Cat, you're doing your thing on defense. Edwards, we need you to step up offensively. We need you to kind of take over this game and be the dynamic guy that you are.
Yes.
So I think that's where we'll see if the comparison has any sort of weight to it.
Yeah.
I think what people need to see, or what people want to see from him, is like a fourth quarter takeover.
Yes.
Or like several minutes, like late game, he just like he scores like 10 in a row.
Yeah. Where no one else is touching the ball. Give me the damn ball. Everyone clear out. Go to the four corners. This is my game. This is the new Ant era. I mean, you saw what they did defensively. They
amazing.
And they did it without Rudy Gobert last game. What's gonna happen when Rudy shows up? We're gonna see. We're gonna see.
Michael Brown just said basically saying, cut him some slack. He's only 22 guy.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. I'm not upset with him. I think what we're saying is people need to back off and try to push it so hard. I think that's what we're saying.
Matthew Rocher also poses a good question. He says, should they vote on MVP after the playoffs? Because we talked about a couple players, Jokic getting swept twice in the finals, or not in the finals, but in the playoffs. So would they ever move it to after?
No, not with it being a finals MVP.
MVP is best player, best team most of the time. So obviously going to be in the playoffs.
Well, I thought it was always best team, not best team, but like in the NFL, it's always usually the best team in the NFL, best player on that team.
Same thing with the Heisman. Best team, best player.
Okay, but that's not totally true.
Jaden Daniels won it.
That's true.
Jane Daniels
I mean,
definitely wasn't.
Caleb won it the last year.
Yeah, that one's not true.
Yeah.
NFL MVP is usually best team and the best player on that team. I think NBA used to be best story, but I feel like now it's become more like, all right, like has the best stats,
Who averages the best?
who averages the best stats, and that's going to be MVP. And Joker, which was crazy because I think he averages like the 19th most shots per game. Like he doesn't shoot a lot,
No.
but his averages with assists, rebounds, and points, you just can't match that. So I
don't think they move it either.
Yeah, I don't think they should either. I don't think they should.
Yeah,
They would have to get rid of the finals MVP then, because most of the time, if the MVP is going to be in the finals, and
Yeah,
if they're voting after the season, it's going to be a guy that's in the finals. So your finals MVP would be the same guy as your season MVP.
yeah, I agree. I think it should be as is. People always like to change it playoff time. Like last year, Embiid loses in the playoffs, and all of a sudden now, like that's
He
terrible.
sucks.
Embiid still had a great year last year. It doesn't mean he shouldn't have won MVP. Like
He had an incredible year.
yeah, so I think it's just biased after the first round or second round playoffs. People start switching their opinions. And that's fine, but that shouldn't affect MVP.
playoffs is also a whole different breed of basketball.
It is different.
Like if people that watch it, it's just everything is schemed so differently.
Yeah.
They actually play with purpose. Like I think it was the Suns. Oh, the Suns Timberwolves. That was probably the best sequence of defense I've ever seen. It's the Timberwolves. I think you know what play I'm talking about.
100%.
The Suns are coming down on a fast break. I was watching this live too. I was like, no words. They're like rotating, trying to recover, and some guy in the corner is open. So the Suns swing the ball around, and the Timberwolves somehow recover. That guy drives baseline, and they still have one person. Everybody, it leads to a turnover when that should have been an easy three.
Yeah.
Like it's very prominent why the Timberwolves are the best defensive team in the league right now.
Well, I wanted to transition into this whole Austin Rivers thing since we're talking Anthony Edwards. Let's go through some list of some superstars here, and let's talk about this whole thing where Austin said that 30 guys from the NBA could right now just walk into an NFL training camp and make a team in the NFL.
Before we get into a list, I want to hear you guys' general thoughts on it.
Okay, wait. I thought it was part of like if you gave him a year or if you gave him 2 years.
I didn't hear that.
I didn't take it as that. I took it as right now, if an NBA player could go into the NFL, but an NFL player couldn't go into the NBA. That's how it sounded to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that how you took it
Is
too,
that how-
Ryan?
yeah.
Yeah, that's how I took it too.
Okay.
That's
So
how I
we'll go
took
with
it
that
too.
one.
So what are your everyone's thoughts on it before we start putting some players and situations?
Well, let's talk about some of the obvious, hurdles. Is that these basketball players, if you get touched, if you get called for a foul, it's a completely athletically, maybe yes. Toughness wise, let's talk about Zion,
Okay,
for instance.
I don't think anyone's arguing toughness. I think
No.
we all know.
No, that's part of the equation.
Okay, I agree, but just skill wise, I think it takes more to be in the NBA than it does to be in the NFL.
Nope.
I disagree.
I
Okay.
disagree.
Wait,
Okay,
what did you say? It brings up more toughness to be in the.
No, I think it takes more athletic skill to be in the NBA than it does to be in the NFL.
listen,
Ooh.
I could see. Could you see Jalen Ramsey being if he concentrated on basketball? Could you not see him in the NBA?
But you said right now. You said right now.
Yeah.
You didn't say concentrate. You said right
Dude,
now.
have you seen his highlights of him hooping? Jalen Ramsey can freaking ball.
Okay, and CJ Stroud also said he could drop 30, or he did drop 30 on Jaime Jaquez, and Jaime Jaquez is in the NBA, and CJ Stroud's not.
Well, I mean, I'm just pointing out the obvious, equations that, I mean, to play 17 games in the NFL, 90% of that roster is injured. Like, you go through very serious injuries and you're expected to play, and it doesn't care, I mean, how beat up you are. So to me, I think that's why NFL players immediately get defensive about it.
Their schedules and the way they play are extremely different, though. So and just to get a quick opinion, do you think that NFL players could play in the NBA or vice versa?
Yes.
I mean, I hate to go.
It can go both ways. I think they both can do it. They're both professional athletes for a reason, and most NFL guys grew up playing basketball.
Yeah.
And vice versa. Like, and LeBron played football in high school and it was amazing. Like, I think it goes both ways. I just think it's harder to make the NBA for a reason. Like, you only have 2 rounds.
Well,
Yeah.
it's harder to make the NBA because they only carry 15 guys on the roster, and there's 53 on a NFL roster.
That's also very true.
I mean, so that's just a math. But other than receiver, I mean, who else could you see that's in the NBA right now play something other than a receiver or safety? Is there anybody?
Running back.
Yeah,
Okay.
running back.
Jalen Brunson getting the ball handed off to him?
If you just gives a little more food to Jalen Brunson and he's not doing as much running as he is every day, he would be an insane running back.
He has
He's
great vision.
He's 6'2", 190.
Great
Josh
vision.
Jacobs is like 5'10", 220.
You said not enough running. It's in the
No, like he doesn't do his cardio as much.
Oh.
Like so he can put on some more weight.
but
Matthew Rocher brought this up way earlier. Great. I want to hear Ryan's take on this too. He says, what team do you think would be interested? It's not football or basketball, but he says, what teams do you think would be interested in Gable Stevenson at linebacker?
Oh yeah, if you guys don't know this, Gable Stevenson, 3-time NCAA champion, Ryan?
2.
2, that's right. That's
An
right.
Olympic champ.
An Olympic champ. He just, I don't know if he got cut
He
or
did.
just he got cut by the WWE.
He did?
He got cut this week.
Wow. That's why.
And there has been, I just think he's not a big enough.
He's not a big character.
Yeah, maybe you have some more insight on that, Ryan. What's your thoughts on that? Because there has been speculation or something came out that there's some NFL teams actually interested, a la Brock Lesnar. Same school, Minnesota heavyweight. A lot of connections there.
Yeah, I mean, Gable and Brock are very close. Like, Brock would train with Gable before the Olympics and was mostly his training partner during his last year of wrestling. So those guys are like super close. And it came out this week. He was supposed to be on Ariel Helwani's show doing an interview, but his agent said that there was some scheduling conflict, something had come up. But he has said that there's multiple NFL teams that are interested in Gable. Obviously, he can go back to wrestling. And then he's also been training MMA for a while as well. So like he's got options. I actually sent him a text last night to see if he would message me back, at least text me back. He didn't, which is no surprise because he's got 9 million things going on. But it was just like, and I talked to him and his brother, and I'm really good friends with them and their family, and his dad's really cool. But yeah, I mean, he's got 9 million things happening right now.
Yeah.
And there's a lot in the rumor mill. Is he going to come? He has a year left of college wrestling if he wants. He does have a year of eligibility. They would have to have some fun with some paperwork, I guess. Because he took a year off, but they would have to put it in as like an Olympic redshirt year.
Yeah.
Is basically what I'm hearing in order for him to come back and wrestle another NBA or another NCAA season. So yeah, I mean, let's put it what it is. I do not see him going into the NFL. NFL teams being interested in him, okay, maybe. Just like Adam Kuhn, who was the heavyweight at Michigan, he had a training camp with the Titans, I believe, like last year.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, he did training camp with Tennessee Titans after graduating, and he ended up getting injured and getting cut, and obviously coming back to wrestling, and now he's going to be an Olympian this year. But we've seen it,
and a rocket scientist as well, right?
and yeah.
Wow.
It's a super smart guy.
Super smart, really nice guy too. But I don't see Gable doing the NFL. I mean, call it what it is though. If you have NFL teams that are calling you, you might want to dip your toe into that a little bit and see what's out there.
I just do a training camp for fun.
So you would know,
like could I do this? But you're coming off cold, right? Like Gable hasn't played football in years,
that has to be tough.
It's really like
NFL camp too.
Yeah, like that's NFL. That's rookie camp. That's guys that have been training for this. Like that's basically like saying, let's take any player from the NFL and bring them over to the wrestling side. There's a learning curve in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially, let's take Micah Parsons and bring him over to wrestling. Micah Parsons grew up a wrestler.
Yeah.
Right. But
right now it'd be tough for him.
It'd be really tough, right? Because he's not training. So I think there's like a 1%, 2% chance. And like I said, I didn't talk to him. I tried to talk to him yesterday, but hopefully at some point him and I will get on the phone. But like, I think there's like a 1%, 2% chance of him doing that. The chances of him coming back to wrestling and doing MMA are exponentially higher. I think I can definitely see him wanting to come back and wrestle again. I think the thing that sucks with him getting cut from the WWE is that it was a week after the Olympic trials. So he probably could have wrestled in the trials, made the team, and be going off to Paris for another gold. Right?
I never understood why he put his shoes on the mat so early. Let me ask you this, Ryan, because you would know this. Now, if you're a heavyweight in college, there's a weight limit, 285. Was Gable cutting any weight? Where does he walk around at?
No, never. I think his last year he was like in the 250, maybe even like 240, anywhere from like 240 to 260, something like that. Yeah, he leaned out a lot, and he's even leaned out a lot since going to the WWE. I saw some pictures of him, like he's leaning out even more. I mean, I think if you remember seeing him as a freshman, still had that baby fat when he was at Michigan or Minnesota. And then he really turned into like a serious adult, towards the end of his career.
Yeah.
Now he's absolutely jacked. So yeah, I mean, if he focused on football, I could see him being great at football. Right. And I shouldn't say great, but I could see him maybe making a team, right? Because Gable's a freak athlete. I mean, his senior year of high school, he wasn't even going to wrestle. He was playing hockey, honestly, and
that's crazy.
Decided that he was going to wrestle, and barely practice and pinned his way, I think, through the entire season. And, so like, he's just an absolute animal. And, he's a true athlete, honestly. Love him to death. But like, I don't see football being in the cards for him whatsoever. I think it's a really cool thing to say, especially as being his agent. My athlete can go one of three ways, and one of those three ways is the NFL or into the UFC cage potentially, or he can go win another Olympic gold. Like, he's an absolute unicorn. That's crazy to say. There's not a lot of guys that can rep guys like that. Dion was amazing. Bo Jackson was amazing, but they were like NBA or NFL and MLB.
Yeah.
Gable's
the list-
multiple disciplines, right? So
He's
you've never
very
seen a guy
smart.
like this.
His kids are gonna have like the craziest dad stories. The dad lord's gonna go crazy.
The reason I ask about the weight is because let's say, I mean, if he's walking around 240, 250, you cannot play on the defensive line being
No.
260. You can't even be 270. That means you'd have to put him as a linebacker, right? And you have to be crazy athlete, but I'm not sure about his speed. So when I heard that, that's why I wanted to ask you. When I heard that NFL teams were calling, I was so interested in like what position would he play if he did even get a tryout in the NFL.
And if it was offense, it would be tight end.
Mhm.
If it was, because he'd be more of an Antonio Gates kind of a guy, right?
Yeah.
Antonio Gates, a guy that played both basketball and football with the Austin Rivers conversation.
Yeah.
But I think he would be kind of an Antonio Gates kind of a guy. Or if he played defense, it would have to be linebacker, or maybe even something like Micah Parsons does, right? Micah Parsons plays with his hand in the dirt sometimes. But he's kind of a hybrid guy. Not saying that Gable's on that level of athleticism, because Micah Parsons is super smart. I think that's the one thing that a lot of people underestimate. And I think it's why my argument of NBA players can't just switch over and play in the NFL, because a lot of it's between the ears. I played college football. I played at Division III level. The learning curve for me was not my athleticism. It was not my toughness. It was, what the hell am I supposed to do on this play?
Yeah.
How do I read this whole entire play in 5 seconds? Right. So that's really where it's going to take a toll on literally anyone, is the mental factor of playing in the NFL, because it's very much so different.
Yeah, CJ said that it's not about size, it's about mentality. No NBA player can take hits consistently.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Like, everyone says, LeBron, maybe the most freakish athlete of all time, maybe other than Shohei Ohtani. I mean, we all know LeBron James, LaFlop James, not known for taking hits. And I've seen LeBron. I've seen football tape where
it's insane.
Where he got a ton of touchdowns. But I mean, where would you see LeBron James playing? And maybe defensive end?
No, he's an offensive guy.
He's just catching.
That was not blocking for nobody.
He ain't not touching nobody.
Yeah, he's an offensive guy. I think he's like a slot player. I think like slot tight end type of guy. Like he's I mean, he's not that type.
Let's not forget that
defense is a mentality, man.
Out of Newport News, Virginia, Allen Iverson. If you guys haven't gone and seen Allen Iverson's film as a quarterback, number 10, and he looks big on the field. On a basketball court, he didn't look very big.
Yeah.
But Allen, AI was 6'1", great size for a quarterback. That dude, I mean, Michael Vick would constantly say best football player he's ever seen on a football field.
He wanted to play
Iverson,
football.
Yeah. Allen Iverson was a dude that could do it. Very rare. That's one guy 100% could ball.
Yeah, we have a bunch of comments. But to sum up, they're basically asking, what if they transitioned into the NFL, what positions would they be able to play besides just catching the ball?
Yeah,
they couldn't play tackle for sure.
No,
it's not big enough. I mean,
yeah, it's all skill players. It's all skill for guys going to the
Joker
NBA.
at left tackle. I mean, come on, like Joker would get killed out there.
You bring up Adam Kuhn. I'd never heard about the whole Tennessee Titan thing. Man, I could see him as a tackle. I mean,
he was an offensive lineman, I think, is where they had him at.
Yeah.
He played amazingly in high school. Both him and Mason Paris, who was the heavyweight after Adam Kuhn, his high school football highlight tape was insane. Yes. He was a linebacker, just like chasing people down. But now I think if an NBA player was to switch over, they're only playing skill positions. That's it. I mean, if you think about all the guys that have played both, there's only one guy that I can think of, and that's Julius Peppers, who was not a skill position guy and was a nasty D end who also played for UNC and was in the Final Four, right? Like him and McNabb are the only two guys that play in a Final Four and playing the Super Bowl. So like, let's call it what it is here. These guys are not coming over to be, as my college coach, they're not coming over to be scuds, right? Like there was skills and there was scuds. I was skills all my life. I was never big enough to be one of the scuds. Scuds, it's a mentality, man. Like you're in the dirt, you're in the trenches. It's there's nothing but fighting, clawing, and scratching in there. Like you don't want to be in that. Like nobody wants to be in that.
It's not fun.
Patrick Queen's insane for a reason.
I saw a really interesting post because this whole topic has brought up what's the best athlete, what's the hardest thing to do. If Rafa was here,
Hitting a baseball.
and Michael Brown,
You said
same thing.
baseball pitcher.
Hitting a baseball is the hardest thing to do in the world. I saw on one of these wrestling sites, they said, what would be harder to do? Hitting a baseball from a professional pitcher or trying to take down an Olympic wrestler?
I think hitting a baseball because
What? You're crazy, man.
you only have like a 0.2 of a second to know what the pitch is. Like the breakdown of a ball coming from the pitcher to a batter is like insane on the time.
Is this like a normal person? Just
a normal
you want to play against an MLB pitcher?
That's the point. Yes.
That shit is impossible.
No.
That's just going, I mean,
I'll tell you
90
what's
miles an
impossible.
hour.
Listen, you could get lucky 1 out of 10,
Can
and
they be equally impossible?
Yes.
because I'm telling you, man, a dude off the street, he ain't taking down a Division I wrestler,
No,
let alone an Olympic wrestler.
I agree, but I think you can at least maybe grab onto something, like maybe hold on for dear life. But
and get thrown through the
no,
freaking.
I agree with you. I'm not saying you can do it. I'm saying like I think you have more of a chance to at least maybe make contact out with a baseball that's coming 98 and you can't even see anything.
That's what I'm saying. You have more of a chance getting lucky hitting a baseball than taking down even a Division I wrestler.
No, I think they're both equally impossible.
No, I think getting a takedown is more impossible.
Yes,
Because if you just get like a ball at you every time, you'll eventually learn when to
When to,
at least
like,
to
time it?
swing it.
Yeah.
But you can't time shit against a
Yeah.
Olympic wrestler.
That's true. I just think hitting baseball is one of the craziest things to do, and like the fact that people do it for a living is it's insane that they
Consistently.
Yeah, like and even batting 300, which is 30%, like that's amazing.
Yeah, you're like, damn.
baseball is a game of failure.
Yeah, like
It is a game.
that's an insane sport to me, and insane concept that it's really impressive to watch in person. You're like people Shohei Ohtani hitting bombs. Like, how does that guy do that consistently?
Oh, Michael Brown equated that to saying that's like saying what's harder, hitting 100 mile an hour pitch or dunking. And
Totally.
dunking, and you're 5'7".
That's a good point. But I've seen 5'7" hoopers that can dunk.
Yeah,
I've seen
come
it.
on, that happens all the time.
Not all the time.
Okay,
but
that's not all the time.
I've seen it for sure.
Well, on to the next subject. I thought that was real interesting.
That was a great conversation.
Yeah, we have a lot of comments here, so I'll bring it.
Okay.
Zero Cool goes, I can't hit off a pro. I ain't even gonna bring down a 6'5" mofo.
Who else has something to say?
Matthew Rocha said, if football didn't exist, we'd have 2 more weight classes and a bunch of unknown stars in wrestling in an alternate universe.
So that's some Frank and Morty shit or
Rick and Morty.
Rick and Morty.
Great show.
Yeah.
Oh, and you also threw into your what's harder. Third one would be you're breaking a world record in track.
That's different because you have to be like you have to train like for years.
Yeah, track is a training thing.
Yeah, you couldn't
He
just
said
go
it's the
run.
perfection of technique to do the most basic human thing.
That's a great breakdown of that.
That's a great
That's an interesting
definition.
wording of that.
That is a great definition. Matthew Rocha, we should put that down somewhere on a plaque somewhere.
We should put that next to our betting logo. The perfection of technique to do the most basic thing. Ryan, what do you think about that?
Have you seen some people run though? Like as basic as you think it is, go to the gym at 5:30 and watch the treadmill. It is entertaining as hell.
It is.
So it may be basic, but watching somebody try to run, whether it be on the treadmill or running outside, it's hilarious. Some people are just super uncoordinated, so it's not that basic.
Yeah, it's not that big.
It's entertaining though. But I mean, I love the breakdown. I seriously do love the breakdown because if something pop off, you got to figure out how to run. You better get them feet moving.
So, we all know Ryan is a huge Atlanta Falcons fan. And,
That's right.
Yes, so
I
we have
forgot
a
about that.
lot to talk
Oh,
about
actually,
here.
2 things to talk about here. First, well, not first, but we're gonna go over their schedule. But first, Eddie said that you actually saw the Penix, not it coming, but you saw it not as a huge surprise. I kind of want to.
Yeah, you got to explain that, Ryan, because I have a very strong. I saw Penix throwing in some footballs with and he looked really good. So when I reached out to Ryan, I'm like, dude, are you serious with this freaking Falcons pick? Does this make any sense? And he said he wasn't shocked. So now you have to explain yourself to the two nobodies community, because apparently you and this guy who had a pre-mock draft from CBS Sports called it. What did you guys see? What did you guys know? Because we were all, if you saw our clip, blown away.
But did you call it, or did you just not seem as unexpected?
No, I definitely didn't call it. I did not call it. And for the record, I wanted a pass rusher, and honestly, they handled that. They did handle that. But when you know, I'm a professional listener, right? As a journalist, you're a professional listener, right? You're either listening to coaches, you're listening to athletes, you're listening to this report, that report, whatever else. So, you know, as a fan, you're gonna, you know, I'm gonna dig my journalistic claws into anything that's coming out of Flowery Branch, right? And I actually had an interview with the Falcons to be one of their sports writers. This was a couple months ago. I obviously didn't get the job, but I could have been moving to Flowery Branch and work for the Falcons if that would have happened. But no, you're listening to every single report that comes out. And the one that really kind of peaked for me was that the GM, as well as Raheem Morris, so Terry Fontenot, and then Zach Robinson, who's the new offensive coordinator, they all flew to Seattle to work out Michael Penix in Seattle. And they loved him when they were there because it was like 40-mile-per-hour wind and it was raining and everything else. And not only that, but they tried to work out a couple other quarterbacks. I can't remember who it might have been Drake May. But Drake May turned down a workout because he didn't feel like he would still be on the board where the Falcons were picking at 8. So he turned down a workout. Penix did not. And he was like willing to meet with them and everything else. So that's, you know, that's kind of endearing to a GM and into a franchise, right? This guy might be off the board, but he's just taking all the options that he has. So, you know, you hear reports like that. You hear that they loved him when he went and worked out, absolutely throwing dots. He's one of the strongest arms, actually the best deep ball thrower that was in the draft, honestly.
Facts.
So when I hear that the brass is flying to Seattle to watch this man work out, or like the front office is going to just to watch him work out, you're like, okay, then this is a possibility, right? So like this is something that's in the cards. And then you're sitting there and I'm like watching everything. And I'm like, we were just in quarterback purgatory for 3 years.
It was.
For 3 years.
As a Raider fan, I've been in purgatory since Rich Gannon.
Not put disrespect on Carly.
Oh,
we will.
Oh, we will.
Yeah, well, I think we'll probably get to the Raiders, right? But one of the things that kind of, you know, piqued my interest as well is during Raheem Morris's introductory press conference, he says, if we had better quarterback play in this building, I wouldn't be here. And this is before they got rid of Desmond Ridder.
I remember that.
I do remember.
This is everything. So that also made it a point that he was going to make sure that his job wasn't reliant on terrible quarterback play, because when you watch the tape, there's a number of games that they were a couple plays away from winning those games, but a bad fumble here, an interception there, and they're like, man, you know. So I wasn't shocked by it. I the first words out of my mouth was they must have really liked him when they flew to Seattle. They you know, you don't fly to Seattle for no reason. You know, that was kind of the premise that I said.
No one flies to Seattle for no reason. Yes.
You know what I mean? Like there was a serious reason and they really loved him. Right. So, and then, you know, and then you hear people saying, well, why pay Kirk Cousins $100 million? And, you know, and mind you, it's a 2-year contract. There's an out in 2026 as well. So if Kirk doesn't play well, insert Michael Penix. Right. So like, it is what it is. But like, the reason you signed Kirk Cousins, again, you were just in quarterback purgatory. Raheem Morris doesn't want his job to be resting on bad quarterback play. You want to make sure that that position is solidified because you see how important it is. And look at next year's draft. Who are the quarterbacks that right now we're nailing down and saying who are we going to get? And then after that, who are those quarterbacks, right? Like, what is it? Arch Manning in the next 2 years, right? Like that's the one guy that I think we're going to rest our hat on because he's not starting this year. He'll start next year. Quinn Ewers is still under center.
Well, also
There's
too,
debate about that.
Raheem, or not Raheem Morris, but I think the
Fontenot,
GM, he said, hopefully we're not even there to pick a quarterback next year because we're not good quarterback play. So he's like, we don't know when again we'll have a top 8 pick. We're banking on having good QB play.
Yeah.
So that's also a good
There's
reason.
2 points I want to bring up about this thing. Okay. The first point I have is supposedly is that Kirk Cousins did not re-sign with the Vikings because they were upfront and said, we are possibly going to draft a QB with the 11th pick. I believe is what they had.
Yeah.
Which he immediately said, boom. Well, then the writing's on the wall. I don't need that. I want to go into a NFL team where I'm the dude. And then, so did Fontenot lie to Kirk Cousins? Because they just went and did exactly what Kirk Cousins did not want to get into a situation with.
I don't think that they lied to him. I think it was a chance of opportunity, right? If you look at the Falcons' last couple of draft picks, every single one of those draft picks are a chance of opportunity. I mean, look at every single one of them, right? Like Bijan, chance of opportunity, best athlete in the draft, got him. Kyle Pitts, chance of opportunity. He's an absolute unicorn at tight end. You're going to get him. Yeah. Same thing happened here where they didn't think Penix would be there. And there was a number of teams that were trying to trade up to get him, right? So, and not only that, the reason you signed Kirk Cousins is because, again, you don't know if Penix is going to be there at 8 when you're drafting.
Yeah.
You have no idea. The best deep ball thrower. He was an absolute monster throughout the entire season. The only thing that was against him was his injury history, but he hasn't been injured in 2 years. Knock on wood. Hopefully he doesn't get injured again, but hasn't been injured in 2 years. Came back from that and played absolutely lights out. So I don't think that they lied to him. I think it was more of a chance of opportunity. They called him before he made the pick, but it was, they're on the clock and they're saying, guys, Michael Penix is still here. We can take him and solidify this position, not just this year, but for years to come, and as much as everybody's saying Kirk Cousins is pissed off, whatever else, like Kirk, you're coming off of a major season-ending injury. Yeah. You're 35 years old. And even though Michael Penix is 24, Warren Moon was 27 when he had his first start too. So let's pump the brakes a little bit, get into a little bit of history. Let's look at some of these left-handed quarterbacks that have really done well, specifically Michael Vick in Atlanta. So, let's kind of go with it. So no, I wasn't mad at the pick. I like I said, I'm a professional listener as a journalist. You listen to all the things that come out from people on the inside, because everybody that's on Twitter, they're not in the meetings. They're not doing the mock drafts. They're not seeing what these people are seeing. There can definitely be some swings and misses. We've had a ton of NFL busts, but when you have a chance to take a guy like Michael Penix, you take him, because if Kirk does go down again, I am not putting Taylor Heineke back in.
Oh, that's Eddie Money's boy. Watch out. Heineke's Eddie Money's boy.
Me and Rafa love Heineke.
So let me ask you. So my second point to this whole thing, which I don't know if you saw Joel Klatt's take. I love Joel Klatt's take on this whole thing, is that I would be equally pissed off if I was Michael Penix. You just stated he's 24 years old, and you're basically saying you got to sit for 2 years. Now you're 26. Michael Penix was possibly the most QB ready of all the QBs. And I think that's a real thing. I would be pissed off if I was Michael Penix. You could have went to the Raiders. You could have went to the Broncos. You could have went to
anywhere.
Maybe
Minnesota,
and been the day one guy.
I wouldn't say if I'm Penix, I'm pissed off though, because at worst, you're getting 2 years of experience of a QB who's been in the game for over a decade.
But Joel Klatt's point is that now that second contract is now delayed another 2 years. When that's the biggest thing for NFL QBs, they want the second.
They want that second contract.
That's true. But then if you get off, think about it. If he really thinks he's that good, you can learn behind him even more. Let's say 2 years, contract market will go up. And then if you play really good that first year, it's like, damn, he waited 2 years, balled out his first year. Let's just re-sign him now before he balls out again the next year.
Listen, Penix
ask
is
for more
no
money.
Penix
Ask
is
for
no
more.
Jordan Love. Jordan Love, I mean, he went through the pandemic.
You can't say that though. You don't know.
He was 100%. Penix was a better quarterback than Jordan Love
Oh, out of college?
in
Okay,
out of
yeah.
college.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Ryan, I'm pissed off. I'm pissed if I'm Penix. I'm pissed.
Yeah, as a player, as a baller, as somebody that wants to be out there, yeah, I can see being pissed off. But then you look at it, and no shade, but like, and maybe, and this is probably obviously my bias talking, but like, look at the other offenses you could have went into.
Okay, that's yeah. Hey,
Right?
hold on.
So-
Are you
so
talking
do you
about
wanna
the Raiders
be-
offense? Because he would have fit in like a glove.
He would have been perfect.
He would have been.
How dare you,
I
Ryan.
was so pissed. That's who I wanted, man. And you stole my quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, it
He had a
happens. But
He had a champagne bottle ready draft day. Regardless of what quarterback was taken, he said, "We're getting a franchise QB today. This will be popped."
And I did not pop that
No.
bottle of champagne that night.
you should have got a bottle of wine. That ages better than champagne.
you have a 20-year-old bottle right now.
I got a 2003 right here, Margot, and it's delicious. But that's how long it's been since I've had a good quarterback in with the Raiders since 2003.
Not a great.
you
That's a great
you
point.
guys picked up who? Bowers, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
Bowers,
yes.
number 13.
Yeah.
I
Another-
heard that was done to a coin flip.
So
There's it's not confirmed, but I think it was taken as, hey man, it was between you and this. It was between you and Brock Bowers. It could have been a coin flip toss. I think he took it literally.
he took it literally.
Yeah.
He had a conversation with Terry and Arnold, who I thought was probably the second best corner. I believe Antonio Pierce said, "Hey man, it was a coin flip." And then Terry and Arnold went on, probably said a little too much, and people took it literally to make it seem. And as a GM in the NFL, you never want to. You always say whatever pick you get, whatever guy that was our guy. That was our guy on our board. You never want to be perceived as an NFL GM, and you guys are flipping coins in the back to see who you're going to pick. Bad look.
Not a bad toss though. I mean,
Landing on the
Brock
right
Bowers
side.
or Terry Arnold. It's
Yeah.
not terrible.
I got a question for Ryan as well as you guys, similar to that. So Ryan was saying earlier that the Falcons have been picking with chance of opportunity, and we saw this year that a couple teams, including the Raiders, were drafting the best guy on the board.
Yep.
A couple years, the Eagles have done that, mainly the Eagles, and we've seen Eagles and Ravens are mainly known for that.
Yes.
And their teams improve consistently. So is that going to be like the way of drafting from here on out, or more so need?
I really think Raiders have consistently, more than any other franchise in NFL, have drafted for need. And we have had the most first round busts, and it's not even close. I don't even think the Lions have more busts than the Raiders in the first round. I mean, go back. I mean, you got lucky with Max Crosby. I believe, and the Ravens are a great example of this. Ozzie Newsome, a really level-headed, front office. I believe the best teams in NFL draft best player available.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the Falcons have been doing that. And also the Penix pick was so that the Saints didn't get him too. That rivalry is strong between the Falcons and the Saints. They wanted to make the Saints were another team that wanted to trade up to get him. So
Yes.
they wanted to make sure that they got that. And the Falcons, honestly, they tried to trade back into the top 10 or think top 10 to get Latu. So like
Wow.
they were trying to go hard when it came to this draft because they want to win immediately, right?
And
like
they can
Raheem
this
Morris wants to
year.
win right now.
Yeah.
I think we were talking about that on draft night. Ever since the Texans completely rebuilt their team in a year, you see a lot of teams trying to take that approach now.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you agree with that, Ryan.
I do. Yeah. I mean, I honestly, I love the draft the best player on the board outside of, there's teams that certainly need quarterbacks, right?
Yeah,
Commanders
yeah.
needed a
I mean,
quarterback.
obviously, unless you have a quarterback that you just signed for 3 years, 180 million, then it doesn't. Oh, wait, that's exactly what you guys did.
No, do it. Do it. Do it.
I'm bitter.
Because, like I
I'm bitter,
said,
Ryan. I'm so bitter.
I did not want, I'm sorry, but I did not want Taylor Heineke to play again. I did not. And let's call it what it is. Taylor Heineke restructured his contract so that we could get some of these pieces. So he took, I think they restructured it so it was like a signing bonus. So they just kind of paid him out and he's making less during the season. But like we saw what that looked like. That's no shade to him. I think Taylor Heineke is a gamer. I loved him in Washington. I think that he was amazing for them. But it did not work out with him being a quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. And I was just like, I'm not a fan of it. So yeah, get us out of the hellhole that we were just in for the last couple of years as fans, watching our team just like, having Desmond Ridder fumble on the 1-inch line or fumble in the red zone or throw another pick over here. Right. Like, man, it just was so hard. It was just so hard. It's like when you go out with that one friend that is the reckless one, and you're like, listen, tonight, just chill, right? Like just do the right things tonight. Let us take the lead. But he was just like, no, like not gonna happen, and would just ambush, the crowd of girls and start breakdancing in front of them and then watching them scatter.
Ryan has dropped some knowledge. I love the whole being a journalist is professional listener. We got to get that on a plaque as well. Yeah. We're going to put a statue of Ryan on our show with a bunch of quotes that he had today.
So after we've talked about the pen picks, now to just go into their schedule a little bit about who they're playing and how you think they will end up.
We do this on
playoff team
yes,
or on the brink.
We do this on the show all the time. We will go through just a quick
Random
review.
teams.
Random teams. Last year it was the Steelers.
Wins and losses. We don't want a professional breakdown. I want gun to the head, win-loss. Eddie Money's going to go through. We don't have the complete dates, but we know opponents. So we are putting you to the test. We are going to go through Atlanta Falcons. And by the way, Falcons are coming to Vegas, baby. I say we set up a Ryan Holmes podcast, Two Nobodies in Vegas. So let's
I'll be there, brother.
Let's go through it, Eddie Money. Win-loss, right? I need W or L.
All right. So first off, you are at Carolina.
That's an L at Carolina.
What? He's
You're being really
level-headed journalist right now.
Like
no. Honestly, like I'm going off of how Carolina played last year. The only thing for Carolina that they did not address is their offensive line. So, they gave up 63 sacks last year. They were the second most sacked team in the NFL outside of the Commanders. So, like, but Falcons did lose in Carolina last year. I think
that's true
that they have also, it was really bad quarterback play, but I think that Carolina takes care of some of the things they need to take care of, has a better offense. And also I'm looking at last year's team. I'm not looking at this year's team because I don't know how they're going to play yet. I don't know how Cousins is going to play yet. So I'm only going off of, some of the defensive things that we saw last year. I'm going to say that it's an L against Carolina at least once this year. I think they split.
We want panics. After the first game,
they lose. Panics chest. Okay.
Remember, we don't know when this game is going to be played. If it is the first game of the year, I'll be surprised.
That's a solid point, actually.
Next, you are at Denver.
At Denver, I see us winning that one. I think Falcons win that one.
There we go. 1-1.
That's what, Bo Nix?
Yeah, Bo Nix.
Or Zach Wilson. So
yeah.
Either way, you're good.
You're gonna win that one.
If Zach Wilson beats out Bo Nix, God help them in Denver.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sean Payton's ego.
I can see it happening. I can really see that happening.
That would be.
I'm just saying.
Okay, so Denver, we have a win.
And then you come to Vegas, play us, the Raiders.
Oh, we're not losing to the Raiders.
All of a sudden he's a fan.
And that's complete spite right now, too.
Yes.
That's because I'm surrounded right now. That's complete spite.
Yes, you are surrounded right now. So we're 3-1. Looking good.
No, you're 2-1.
2-1.
Then you play at Minnesota against the Vikings.
You know this is going to be a primetime game.
That is primetime.
Oh, for sure. It has to be.
Primetime Kirk, baby.
Primetime Kirk. That's a loss.
Right? That's where I'm like, man, Kirk does not play well in prime time.
It's his old team. He's gonna want revenge. I think you guys win that one.
And you play.
I do think the Falcons get that one. I really do. I think that they do get that one. Did the Vikings even get a quarterback? Oh yeah, they have.
Well, I mean, some would say my son to the right here would say they did not get
They
a
might
quarterback.
as well have gotten a receiver.
He's been on the hate JJ.
I don't hate
since
McCarthy.
like
I don't.
week 2.
I just think the tape would tell you to not get him in the first round.
Agreed.
Well, who else were they going to get?
But that's not
Michael freaking Penix.
They could have not even that. But if you went true best player on the board, he would have been in maybe the 30s, 40s.
Yeah, we were saying he would be like a third rounder.
Oh.
But quarterback is such a high need in the NFL that it's okay to reach for that quarterback because you don't know when they'll be correct again.
Yeah, especially after last season, because I think like over half the teams had a backup play or had a
the most ever.
It was the year of the backup.
Yeah.
So let's get okay. So we're Minnesota
at Minnesota.
At Minnesota,
3-1.
Yeah, that's a win in Minnesota.
Yeah,
okay.
Another away game against the Saints.
Saints win that one. They always play very well at home, especially against the Falcons.
Very
Just
tough.
kind of is what it is.
And then you play in Philadelphia against the Eagles.
Oof, that's tough.
That's another loss, I think, against the Eagles. I'll be realistic. It is my hometown team. I am from Easton, Pennsylvania, which Philly is an hour away, and
yeah, baby.
My mom will be happy that week. She'll probably talk some trash all week, so she'll be happy that week.
3-3.
Then you have at Tampa Bay.
That's a win. We're not losing to Tampa at all this year.
Love it.
Oh, and you have at the Redskins.
That's my brother's team, and they beat the Falcons last year. I need to be able to talk some trash, so that's a win.
There we go.
As much as I love their quarterback, I think there's gonna be some growing pains for him a little bit.
I agree.
A little bit. Brand new coach, brand new offense, brand new quarterback. If it clicks, it clicks, but there's gonna be some growing pains in Washington for a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Now we got the rest are home games. So you're playing Carolina again for a second time.
Yeah, that's a win in Carolina against Carolina.
You're gonna play the Cowboys.
That's got to be a win, and I need that because one, my girlfriend's a Cowboys fan, and basically the rest of my family is Cowboys fans. So like, I am the low man on the totem pole when it comes to this. I need that to be a win. I might actually go to that game because it's in Atlanta. So yeah, I need that to be a win. So they're
just so you know, Ryan, you're at 7-3 right now.
I think that's reasonable.
Yep.
All right, then you play the Chiefs.
That's an L.
The
L.
one
as much as I would love to beat, I would love that. I would love for the Falcons to beat the Chiefs, but man, that's gonna be tough. That's gonna be tough
for sure.
Then you play against the newly led Chargers.
Tough game.
Yeah, and they got some pretty good. I mean, they did give up their best wide receiver in the offseason, but they're gonna be a running team. That's gonna be a really tough game. I'll give that one to the Chargers. I will. I'll give
Eddie Money's gonna wear 79 and try out for receiver over here for the Chargers. Yeah, I think he has a good shot to meet the roster.
Yeah, I don't know what the total is going to be on that, but give me the under. Then we have the Saints again.
That's a win.
Then we have the Giants.
That's another win. That's another win.
The Steelers.
Yeah, this is Arthur Smith coming back with basically every player that left the Falcons now in Pittsburgh. There's no way that they're losing to Pittsburgh. That's a win.
I agree with that, by the way.
That's a win.
So
yeah,
10-4.
Then you got the Seahawks.
By the way, that's a win, and Russell Wilson will not be the quarterback during that game either.
Oh, Joe, for the Steelers, Justin Fields is going to be the QB.
Justin Fields will be the QB at that point. Yeah, Seahawks. That's a win as well.
And then you have the second game against the Bucks.
That's another win.
Damn. What is that?
So he started out so humble. We're like, hey, man, this guy has really, he's not a fanatic.
He's level-headed.
Win.
We're at 13-4, Ryan. Are you serious? You are the definition of fanatic.
This is one of the easiest schedules in the NFL this year.
Honestly, going through it, you guys face the first 5 games a new quarterback. Like,
Yeah,
still Bryce Young's the second year, so that's still be tough for him. Bo Nix possibly in one of those first 5 games. Like, that's a pretty
Jaden Daniels
again.
Derek Carr twice. I'd say both dubs there.
You're gonna face.
I mean,
probably
yeah.
Aiden O'Connell for the Raiders.
Easy.
No,
Tom Brady. Tom Brady will be the
Get
starting
outta
quarterback
here.
for the Raiders.
This guy.
I don't want my quarterback to have Botox.
Whatever it takes, man.
Yeah, I do think that the Falcons are a playoff team, and I'm sure the chat's probably going pretty crazy right now, thinking that I'm kind of delusional. But honestly, like, it was what, 3 straight 7-10 seasons. If you look at the quarterback play was not the best. So like, that's kind of where it's at for me. Is quarterback play has to get better. I feel like the Falcons got better in the trenches. They did address pass rush with 2 amazing pass rushers. Didn't get the guy that I wanted. Honestly, I'm a Florida State fan, so I wanted I wanted Verse and I wanted the tandem that the Rams got. I wanted that, and honestly, it was right there for the Falcons to take it, but they had other plans. But yeah, Verse and Fisk are gonna kill people. They just are. I mean, you're replacing Aaron Donald with 2 guys that can now live up to that, right? So like that, and you did need 2 guys to live up to what Aaron Donald was going to do. So, and you got the right 2 guys to do it. But no, I don't think I'm too crazy. I mean, I think that there's probably a couple of picks in there where it's more bragging rights for me with Washington and Dallas, but I see the Falcons winning the division. I don't see anyone taking the division from them. They're in the weakest division. They were a quarterback away, like I said, a number of times from winning a lot of these games. And I think they solidified that. Whether it's Kirk Cousins or Michael Penix, I have full faith in what that offense looks like, because Kyle Pitts is actually going to get the ball. Drake London's actually going to get the ball. Bijan's actually going to get the ball. Like, these guys are going to be utilized better in Zach Robinson's offense than in Arthur Smith's. So, it's more faith in the team with the people that are put in place to kind of put the puzzle together. I didn't really have any faith in Arthur Smith because I thought that he was just kind of riding the very, very big coattails of a very large running back in Tennessee. And that's why his offense was as good as it was. Because if Ryan Tannehill can put the ball where it needs to be a couple of times, you're going to be absolutely fine. There's not going to be anything that goes wrong. You have Derrick Henry, hand him the ball, and they're going to crowd the box, and you run play action and you beat some teams. So I think that's where Arthur Smith's offense came from. And I didn't really have a lot of faith in him, honestly, as a Falcons fan after, that first season. So 7-10, 3 straight years kind of tells you that.
Well, yeah, I picked Drake London a year too early. So you're saying Drake London is a thing? Because, I mean, the dude is talented.
He was good last year with no quarterback.
Yeah. I think he's a thing this year. I do. I think he's a thing. Like, don't get on the Kyle Pitts train just yet. I think he's a year away. Maybe even 2 years away. Honestly, he is healthy, but it is going to take learning a new offense and them actually treating him like the wide receiver he's built like, and not the tight end that he is, for him to actually be the guy that everybody wants him to be as a fantasy player.
So Ryan, I know you've watched this show before. This is about the time where I've had 2 beers, a half a bottle of wine, and my bladder goes into failure. We take a small break. We change our battery for the camera. And then when we come back, we're going to get, I mean, you guys think Ryan knows about football. We're going to get into a specialty. We're coming back. We're talking Oklahoma State, Blue Blood wrestling program. We're going to get into that. Ryan, give us 3 minutes. We'll be right back. We're going to talk some wrestling, baby. I love it. Are you good with that, Ryan?
I'm all good with that.
All right, man.
Be right back.
Back, everybody, to Two Nobodies with the Mic, episode 79, live and direct on YouTube. We have a very special guest on our show today, Ryan Holmes, the journalist. What did he say? What did you say? Professional listener, journalist.
Professional listener. Yep.
I love it. I love it. We just went through Atlanta Falcon winner loss. Ryan shocked us out the gates. He said lost to Carolina Panthers, and then they went undefeated after that. Or not quite. I mean, anyways.
I think 13-4 is feasible. The easiest schedule in the NFL right now.
That's fair.
Well, just know that Eddie Money is going to make a reel, and
that's all going to be clipped in like 60 seconds.
Yeah, that's all going to be clipped. It's going to say 13-4, and
it's also going to be like a 10-minute YouTube video.
Yeah, and you are going to get a ton of hate.
I can't wait.
I don't know. I think it's going to get a lot of Penix love.
Oh, well. Anyways, guys, if you guys don't know, Ryan works for the Intermat Wrestle, and it's a great just a complete website and one of the best, I think, outlets for wrestling collegiately. I saw today, was it today that you had the owner of Claw Wrestling?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Did an interview with him yesterday, but we're making a lot of changes on Intermat. They're going to be coming pretty soon. So we're in the kind of the rebuild phase. We have a couple more meetings and things, but we're going to be coming in hot for the next season with some different changes and some different stuff coming. I
love it, man, because Flow has been on top of this, royalty. It's like they just sort of like ESPN in the 80s, 90s, like they were the end all be all of wrestling, and Intermat needs to come in there and stake their claim. Everyone's tired of the same. I mean, listen, all those dudes are great. I know you're friends with all of them, but we're all ready for a fresh, a fresh angle from someone else.
We're kind of friends. I'll put it that way.
I love it. I love it, guys. The big news, which I've tried to explain to all my good friends. Obviously, if you're in the wrestling community, a bombshell was dropped on the entire United States, and Oklahoma State.
Might want a different wording.
Oh yeah. Ooh. Wow. God.
Subject.
Good job, Eddie Money, pointing that out. Okay. Just
big news happened in the wrestling world.
Big news. This is something that is like, if you want to put it this way, this is something that is going to change the direction of collegiate wrestling. This is something that is moving the needle. I mean, if you look at Flow Wrestling's numbers on their posts and reels, it's off the charts. I mean, 30,000 likes and, thousands of comments. This is something that has rocked the wrestling world. What we're talking about is John Smith, maybe the greatest wrestler in American history, the godfather of wrestling, has finally retired. And Oklahoma State went out of the family tree and hired maybe the biggest name in wrestling, and hired David Taylor. And you have been covering this and an integral part. So this is something that I've been very excited to talk to you about. What's your general thoughts? And I know you were involved, all the players, you have personal relationships. How would you put this in a nutshell? And what's your opinion on it?
It's huge, honestly. Oklahoma State going outside and getting somebody who's not an alumni as their next head coach, who is bringing in a guy who wrestled at Iowa, and he's bringing in Jimmy Kennedy, who's his brother-in-law as well, who, is also a collegiate. Like it's a hodgepodge of great wrestlers that are now going to be coaches at Oklahoma State. It's a very big deal, because when you look at the years of John Smith, there was a ton of dominance. They have the most NCAA championships. They had, before Penn State was putting 5 guys in the finals and winning titles, Jesus. Oklahoma State was doing it. Oklahoma State had 5 champions in 1 year, right? So, and now those guys are all coaches. That's Pendleton, that's Espo, like that's Mako, like all those guys, are now NCAA. Yeah. They're all now coaches. Pendleton being a head coach at Oregon State. Espo is now the associate head coach at NC State. Mako has, I believe, a club in Florida.
Yeah.
So like this was monumental. What it said for me was that they needed a change of direction. And what we've seen over the last couple of years is that Penn State has a formula of what they do. And what better way of pulling that formula into an already championship program in Oklahoma State than to go get one of the guys that was part of the start of that saw that from its infancy and has been in the room and has trained with those guys until literally last year, where they broke the points record and had
Jesus.
2 4-time NCAA champions crowned in the same year. Right. So that's what it said to me, and there was a number of guys that were part of that mix. Oklahoma State took 2 shots at getting somebody from Penn State. One guy was Casey Cunningham, who is an assistant coach at Penn State. He was one of the other phone calls that was made, and was supposedly in the mix. David Taylor became the head coach ultimately, but they didn't know that he was even a guy that was an option, because as John retires, the following week is the Olympic trials, so that entire week, a lot of the talk was nothing but Coleman Scott is the next guy that is going to be the head coach at Oklahoma State. And that's what everybody was thinking, down to the part where I was talking with Coleman and his wife about it. Like, hey, like, do you guys feel like you have the best shot to get this? And they obviously did. They had moved from North Carolina, where Coleman was the head coach, to go to Oklahoma State and become the associate head coach to hopefully become that next guy when John retired. And no one knew, including John, I don't think, knew that it was going to be one more year and then he was ready to retire. I think he got to the end of the season and was like, all right, now I'm ready, and that's how it went. So, David Taylor now being the guy, and this being his first time as a head coach, first time as a collegiate coach, period, hasn't been on staff anywhere, has been nothing but I shouldn't say nothing but has been a competitor all his life, to now step into, very big shoes to fill. And I would say kind of 2 very big pairs of shoes to fill, because he's coming behind John Smith, but he's leaving Cale Sanderson's program. And right now, everybody expects him to be Cale 2.0. And I want David Taylor to be David Taylor, right? Like, he is ultra dynamic scorer, amazing wrestler. And if he brings that same sort of mentality, obviously there's going to be an overlap between Penn State and Oklahoma State. There's no way around it. But I think what Oklahoma State was looking for, which is what John brought to Oklahoma State in the first place, was that big name notoriety, because at the time that John became the head coach, he was big name notoriety, right? He was multiple time world and Olympic champion. And the people and the kids that he was recruiting had just watched him compete.
Yes.
And he spent 1 year, I believe, as an assistant before becoming the head coach. Cale was an assistant at Iowa State before taking over at Iowa State and then going to Penn State. But John had that big name notoriety. So when he walked into your living room, just like when Cale Sanderson walked into David Taylor's living room, it was like the guy that I have a poster of on my wall is sitting in front of me and wants me on his team. So that was the same dynamic that you saw with hiring David Taylor at Oklahoma State. These kids have grown up watching David Taylor. We grew up watching Cale Sanderson, watching John Smith.
Yeah.
Right. Watching, Kerry McCoy. We grew up watching those guys. So it's a generational thing. Coleman Scott is he's an awesome person. Love him to death.
Amazing
and
person.
He would have been a great coach as well. But I think when they were looking at it, they're saying David Taylor is a name that's going to really shake things up. It's going to change how things are done around here. He's an Olympic champion. We want to replace our Olympic champion, our Olympic and world champion, with another Olympic or world champion, and not only that, they want a little piece of that championship mentality that's been happening in State College. So they're going to bring in a guy like David Taylor, right? And there was a number of times, and it was kind of reported that Taylor turned down the job a couple of times, but they were so gung-ho, and they had, the CEO of Paycom, what's his name? Hutchison, believe it is, or Richardson.
Very rich guy, son?
Yeah, Chad Very Richardson, I guess is what his name is. And he came in and really helped push the envelope to get David Taylor. And David said today during his press conference, he wanted the right program, the right situation with the right resources and a program that could win. And and I'm not putting down any other team because, NC State does very, very well. Virginia Tech did amazing job this past year, Michigan as well. But when you look at the big three, it's Penn State, it's Oklahoma State, and it's Iowa. And those were the three jobs that I think that David Taylor would even really consider at this point, especially coming off a loss at the Olympic trials where he didn't make another Olympic team. So, the formula was there. They dedicated the resources to what he wanted, and they got their big, tremendous splash hire. I mean, you mentioned what things look like on social media when Oklahoma State announced this. Mind you, we were actually recording our show at the time that the news was breaking. So the show started with us asking what the hell's going on in Oklahoma State. And by the end of the show, we were like, oh shit, it's David Taylor. Right. And we had obviously heard about that, but they made the announcement at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, Central Time, 11 o'clock at night, Eastern Time. Right. Like it was late. That doesn't really doesn't really happen. Right. So, and that one post by the next day was viewed 1 million times. That's crazy. Kind of unheard of in the wrestling world.
That is
right? Like
insane.
That doesn't really happen. That's just on Twitter, right? Like Twitter had 1 million views of the post announcing David Taylor. So this is a tremendous hire. Honestly, it really is. And I feel bad for Coleman Scott, who really truly wanted the job. This is his dream job, but I feel very good for David Taylor being able to start off his career, right? Like those two things are very separate. I love Coleman, think he would have been great in the job, but I also feel like David Taylor can do a really great job as well.
So I've tried to explain, we have a large group text. Obviously, my son's wrestled. I'm a part of the wrestling community, but I tried to explain the significance that this was. The only thing I could say to them and explain an analogy is imagine LeBron retires this week. Didn't make the championships, disappointed. He was going to make, and then says, I'm taking the Kentucky job next year. Zero coaching experience. No one, we all knew David Taylor was eventually going to coach, but this seemed like, was this a knee-jerk reaction? Think about the chain of events. Zahid Valencia against Aaron Brooks. Yeah. If Zahid beats Aaron Brooks, does David Taylor beat Zahid, or is Zahid now representing? Does David Taylor take this job if he's in Paris in July?
I don't think anything changes. I think he still does. But I think the timeline of things changes because I don't know if he's thinking about that, right? Because the only reason he's thinking about life after wrestling is because life after wrestling is now right here in front of him, right? That's the page he's on.
Yeah.
If he makes the team, I think it's still an option, but even Oklahoma State said that they didn't know David was an option until he was an option.
Yeah.
I think that while he still could have become the head coach at Oklahoma State, I don't know if he does right now, right? Like that's the hard part because he's the way David is he's focused. He keeps the main thing, right? He may have M2 training center. He may have, all the cattle and, he's got his farms and everything else in State College, but that's a blip on the radar for him, right? That's a means of getting my mind off of the competition, allowing my body to, to just relax, giving back to the sport with being a club coach at M2, having a hobby with, his couple heads of cattle and everything else.
8 chickens, a pig. He said it in the
Right. Like
comments.
he's got a farm now. Right. So
Yeah.
but I think the opportunity presented itself because his career had come to an end. And he even said today that after winning in 2021, it was very hard for him to continue wrestling until 2024. But the only reason that he did was because it was only 3 years and not 4.
Uh-huh.
That extra year really made a big difference. He's like, I can stick it out. I can take care of my body. I can do the things I need to do to make another team. And I feel like I have the fire to do it. He said the fire wasn't as hot, and it, ultimately ended up with him losing to Aaron Brooks, but he felt like he could still do it. So he went out and he tried to do it, right? Especially with him sitting in the finals. He didn't have to wrestle throughout the entire tournament because he was the returning gold medalist. So he sat in the finals. And you think, I can beat the guy that has been in the room, and he knows how good Aaron Brooks is, which is why they haven't trained together in years. They stopped training together, I believe, after the last Olympics, because Aaron was his training partner when they went to the last Olympics in Tokyo. But you'd feel like you can do it, right? And ultimately, he doesn't end up on the team. So I think it became an option then. So yeah, I think he probably still would have had coaching aspirations, but I don't think he's an option for Oklahoma State. So I may have contradicted myself, but like, I honestly think like he still becomes a coach at some point, but he may become an assistant coach at Penn State instead of the head coach at Oklahoma State if he was to make the team.
Yeah, it makes sense. So, the question is, and if people don't know, in the wrestling world, Penn State has essentially been John Wooden and UCLA basketball. I think they've won the last 9 out of 10 championships. Is that correct?
I don't know if it's 9 out of 10. It's at least 7.
Yeah,
so it might be 7 out of 10 or 7
Ohio State who was it that Ohio State
won?
Ohio State won 1 year.
It's at least 7. I think.
Yeah, I think it's only 7.
Okay. Either way, it has been complete dominance. And when people think they're getting close, they have just widened the margin. It's been ridiculous. And my wife and I, one of our favorite things is obviously the NCAA championships. And when you see these kids or young men win, and they're in their interview right after they win, and it's freaky when they ask, how'd you do this? Or what was the main factor? They all sort of have the same tone as like, we're just having fun. Yeah. And anyone who knows wrestling, fun is usually not associated with cutting weight every week, training with the heater on. I mean, it's a grueling process. And what is Kale and can David Taylor bring the same secret sauce, which is, we don't know what it is. What is the secret sauce that Kale Sanderson and Penn State, what are they doing different? Do you know? Because I'm dying to know.
No, I have no idea, honestly. And it's, I was fortunate enough to cover the NCAA championships this year, and I was on the floor and I was able to interview each one of the finalists after they won in the semifinals, interview Kale in the interview room. And the secret to it doesn't come out in anything that they say. It's just the mentality that they have. David kind of alluded to it today during his presser, where he said something like, we're going to have fun and we're going to score points.
Yeah.
And for me, that was the most Kale thing that he said throughout the entire thing. And that was honestly kind of the only thing that he said that reminded me of Kale, was that we're going to have fun and we're going to score points. But it is that mentality, and I listened to Aaron Brooks did an interview with Justin Bosch, and I listened to that today, and it's the same thing. Aaron Brooks, he's very religious. He talks about God a lot,
Yeah.
and I'm very close with his family as well. And he's always essentially been like that. I think it's become even heightened more since going to Penn State. I mean, they had Bible study before the finals. They weren't so worried about going out and losing a match, right? Like they're not worried about those things. They're worried about going out and scoring points, because if you score more points than anyone, you're going to win the match. That's just the long and short of it, and that's what they've been focused on. And not a lot of their guys are focused on cutting weight. I think Carter Sirachi is very big for 74, which is why he's probably going to be up at 84 or even 97 next year. But Aaron Brooks isn't cutting a lot of weight.
No.
He's a natural, naturally around 210 pounds probably.
Vincenzo wasn't cutting weight.
Chenzo's not like Bo Nickel. They're not cutting a lot of weight. KO doesn't want them to cut weight, because if you're focused on cutting weight, this is the one thing that I remember hearing KO say: if you're focused on cutting weight, you're not focused on getting better. And that's like the most ultimate thing that I can ever equate that to. I'm like, why didn't anybody tell me that when I was in high school? Right? Like I was 5'11", 145 freaking pounds in high school. So like, if I was more focused on just getting better and not focused on cutting weight, would have been a completely different story. But like, he just makes it so simple and takes it back to grassroots of just, we're going to go out, we're going to have fun. And that's really what it is. That's the only secret sauce that I can honestly see anyone having, is that they're just going to focus. They keep the main thing. You're not going to go out and party. You're not going to be crazy doing this and doing that. And, it's funny because Quentin Wright this week responded to somebody on Twitter where somebody said something about, the Oklahoma State had maybe a lot of partiers or whatever else. And
I saw
gonna have to clean house or something like that. And Quentin Wright was like, Kale heard a rumor that there were two guys that may have been out when they shouldn't have been out at a party. And the amount of running we had to do, there's still dents in the floor now from when I had to run, right? Like they just keep the main thing. And that's really the only thing I can say. I don't know what the secret sauce is. I have no idea. And no one's ever going to know if you're outside those walls and you're not welcomed into the Penn State family. You can't even take a cell phone camera into their room. There's a sign on the door that says no camera phones. So I think that's probably going to happen with Oklahoma State as well. But like I said, I think as much as David Taylor is going to pull from Penn State, he's also going to have his own things that he incorporates, things that he's learned wrestling internationally, things that he's learned from wrestling in this decade, essentially.
It's just, it seems so easy. Go ahead, anyone.
Matthew Usher had a couple comments. He said he got goosebumps after the DT presser. And he also said, I feel like OK State is going to look totally different with DT there. And I think they're the closest thing that can challenge Penn State.
I agree.
That's what everyone's thinking. It's the logical, that's why I talk about the secret sauce. Does David Taylor have the secret sauce that Cael Sanderson has? They're two different people. Obviously, David Taylor has idolized Cael Sanderson. He followed, he was the first block of the build. He's the foundation of what Penn State has built. But they're different people. I feel like it seems so logical. Do you think that John Smith was in on this decision? Do you think that he wanted to keep it in the Oklahoma State family? Because that's what really shocked everyone, right? Is that they finally went outside the family. You think John put his stamp of approval and said, I'm okay with this? Yeah,
and he did again today. He was at the presser. I've seen a number of videos where John is he's very happy about David Taylor coming in. He said he wanted him to be a Cowboy when he was recruiting him, and he finally got him, essentially. It's years too late, but he finally got him. So yeah, I think John did put his stamp of approval on this entire thing, honestly. And I think things are going to look different in Oklahoma State. And that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted that. They wanted things to look different, because they hadn't had a championship in a while. So, they ultimately wanted things to look different. And, Willie Saylor and I talk a lot. He's Matt Scouts on Twitter for anybody that follows him. And, Willie and I are from the same hometown. So I've known Willie all my life. And, him and I have always talked, but we've talked a hell of a lot more. And for people that know Willie, it's very hard to get Willie Smalls on the phone at any point, get him to respond to text messages, anything. In the last couple of weeks, the amount of phone calls and text messages that Willie and I have had with just like following every piece of this Oklahoma State story, what he's getting, because he's talking to David directly. I'm talking to Coleman directly, right? Like we're getting all of these different pieces. He's also talking to people in the administration of Oklahoma State. So like he's getting all these pieces. And one of the things that he said when Willie broke the news, because they actually went live. We ended our show so that we could actually go watch Willie live. Because we were all obviously in the group text and we all know the news already. But he said John wanted a big name slam dunk hire. He wanted that, and when you look at that in this era,
windmill 360.
I mean,
the legs slam dunk.
Yeah, like the big name hire is going to be a David Taylor. It's going to be a Jordan Burroughs. It's going to be those types of guys that you are bringing in to now be your successor. So with that, yeah, I think John approved of it. I think John approved of it even more today during, the presser where he was there in support. He talked to David. He hugged David. He had his arm around David Taylor. Like he was there. He even did a bunch of interviews talking about, him basically putting his stamp of approval on it, and now, right now the coaching staff is David Taylor, Jimmy Kennedy, and Thomas Gilman. That's going to change. There's going to be a couple more guys that I'm hearing are going to probably come in. At this point, I can't put any of that out, but there's going to be some more hires, I think, and more parts of their coaching staff coming together. And it's going to be a completely new regime. It just is.
Is there any footage of Thomas Gilman and John Smith like shaking hands today or yesterday? I think that's if everyone knows, Thomas Gilman is a firecracker, and when he was wrestling for Iowa, literally got in a screaming match during it's called with the Bedlam. I don't. It's the biggest rivalry in college wrestling, Oklahoma State, Iowa, and Gilman was public enemy number one as far as if you were a cowboy.
Yeah,
are they gonna accept him? And has John put his
they
arms?
already have.
I gotta see it, man.
I haven't. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but they've all accepted it. Like even past Cowboys, Nick Piccinini, he tweeted out like, "Welcome Gilman." Him and Gilman have obviously had some rivalries. They got into it, during that match. And there's been a number of just like alumni that have just like, I mean, Thurman Thomas went to Oklahoma State.
That's right. Barry Sanders, right?
He just completely was like, welcome. Thurman Thomas is, he put a tweet out and welcomed him. I believe Thurman Thomas is Jordan Burroughs' wife's uncle.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, he embraced it. So like, I haven't seen any video of it, but they're all on the same team now, right? Everybody's a Cowboy. There's no shade. Thomas Gilman is now going to be coaching Dayton Fix. He's going to be part of the art. Like, Dayton's not leaving the RTC. So like those guys are going to get along. They're going to work together because they're going to have to, Dayton just lost to Thomas Gilman 6-0 at the Olympic trials. Now he's his coach. Right. So, it's amazing. I think it's going to be great for the sport. I think one of the things for me that I really took notice of that I think this hire does, and, I think it opens the door to Pennsylvania more now than the door had been open in the past.
As
when
far
it comes to recruiting.
Recruiting. Oh, yes.
When it comes to recruiting. That door's definitely more open now.
Matthew Rocha had a comment. He said, Thomas Gilman famously said, never turn your back on the enemy.
Yes.
And then he also asked, do you think that the Brands can bring Iowa another title?
Sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be tougher now.
It's gonna be a hell of a lot tougher now. But I mean, that's tough, right? Because as much as you want there to be more parity in wrestling, the scales have been tipped more in Oklahoma State's way than in Iowa's way with this hire. Because like I said, I think that Oklahoma State gets more guys out of Pennsylvania. There's a couple of guys that I think who didn't have Oklahoma State really very high on their list. They now are very high on their list.
Yes.
Right. And then there's some guys in the transfer portal as well that may be looking right to make that move. So I think the Oklahoma State versus Iowa duel is going to be even more electric than the year that we mic'd up John Smith and Tom Brands, which never saw the light of day because of many reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, while I was at Flow Wrestling, we put microphones on both those guys during that duel, and it was
I can't even imagine what was said.
Oh yeah, that's like the Zapruder film.
Imagine what was said.
Oh, it was insane. Like, and I believe it was the duel where Gilman and Piccinini got into it, and John Smith ended up getting into it too. I think John still had his mic on at that point. So that's how, like, that clip that went out that you guys may have seen, I think that's how we got a lot of the audio, was because John was mic'd up, and then there was a camera crew, obviously, that was right there that was catching everything. Had to turn some things down, but there was some choice words in that handshake.
I'm sure. So let me ask you this, because like I said, I'm trying to explain the gravity of this. Why is it with wrestling, especially, you get iconic wrestlers, Dan Gable, the Brands, Cael Sanderson, now David Taylor. Why is it that in any other sport, iconic wrestlers translate to iconic coaches? It's something that rarely happens, a la Michael Jordan, or great quarterbacks in the NFL try their hand at being the head guy. It just never seems to work out. But in the sport of wrestling, it's almost like a home run.
Because of the mentality, and it's technique based. You can make a guy really good on top. If a guy has the right mentality, you can instill that. Pause, right?
Pause, yes.
You can get a guy a good low single. You know what I mean? You can perfect where a guy is deficient. It's very hard to make a defense play cohesively if they are not a cohesive defense. You know what I mean? Like it's just hard to do, and then the scheme of everything in the NFL or in the NBA, very hard to do. Right. And I mean, we've seen it work more in baseball than we have in the NFL or in the NBA, so in wrestling, it's mentality, it's training, and you can, I don't know, more so now. I don't know how it is now, but more so in the past, you could grab a kid and throw him into a wall when it came to wrestling and toughen him up. You know what I mean? Like now, you
the sun's been
can't do that anymore.
Many times.
You know what I mean? Like you can't do that anymore. So like the landscape of sports is certainly changing, but something that will never change that drastically is the mentality of the athletes and how they see the sport and how they grind. Right. And something that I can certainly equate to my, personal career is now these kids have seen winning on the world and Olympic stage close up, because a lot of these kids are making world teams at a younger age, and
Crazy.
they're around David Taylor, they're around Kyle Snyder, they're around Jordan Burroughs. They see what the training looks like in order to get to where they want to get to. So they see it. It's tangible. They know that, you know, they're an arm's reach away from it. And a lot of these kids can pick up the phone and call Jordan Burroughs because they're part of his club. They're part of these camps. They can call him. You know, that's the biggest difference.
It's
is
something
these
you
kids
don't-
know it's attainable.
You don't see in any other sport.
Matthew brings up a good point. He said it's because it's an individual sport. So you just got to focus on like yourself out there really, and you kind of just relive what you've been. Whereas like football, extremely hard. You got 10 other people to worry about.
It doesn't equate to success. Well, you know, to me, it's crazy. Is there any way this fails? Is there even a pathway? Is this like a sure home run? Is this you know, because everyone says, like I said, LeBron James, you know, being a head coach a lot of times there's a lot of head coaches out there in college that are like, I don't want to say figureheads, but they don't teach technique. They're the more, you know, the fundraiser guy, the shaking the hands and then hiring a staff. David Taylor has zero experience with SIDs and athletic directors and compliance. Is that the only way? What's your thoughts on it? Is there any way this fails?
I think that there's always a chance that something fails, right? But like, I don't think he's going to really have to worry about that because he's the reason he took the job is because of the formula that he repeated today. You know, it's the right resources, program that can win, right situation.
Yeah.
And the resources, they're clicking like crazy. And they're going to click like crazy. You know, and the thing that's different at Oklahoma State that is definitely truly different at a place like UNC, right? Like your son goes to UNC. Rob Cole is a great fundraiser. He's, you know, great politician type guy. Like he also knows technique, obviously. He can be in the room teaching technique, making tweaks to game plans and things like that. But he's also really good with shaking hands.
Yeah,
At Oklahoma State,
that's not what he's best at.
But that's
he's
not
best at, you know, the other stuff.
exactly. So, but at Oklahoma State, it's very different, right? They are invested in wrestling all the time. Oklahoma State is probably more of a wrestling school than anything when you really look at it. Like
Easily.
it really is. Like they have a, you know,
not even Penn State.
Yeah, like the football team at Oklahoma State certainly played in you know the championship, everything else, but like there's only one John Smith.
Yeah,
and when John Smith needs donor money, you pick up the phone. You've got $50K. Like just call it what it is. Like that family is very tight and very close knit. It just is what it is. So I don't think that the fundraising aspect of it is going to be a problem.
Yeah, no. I said it. I said it yesterday. The people in that room, they're gonna line up and have their checkbooks, and they're gonna be like, because they all want to be a part of that winning. You know, they want to be inside that circle. I don't think
they don't want Kale to catch them.
Yeah.
We got two good comments here. Rick Flores asked, he can be taught the office stuff, but the coaching part is what he was hired for.
Exactly.
And then Boomtown says, but can David Taylor run a high-end wrestling program like a business?
I don't think he has to. Because like I said, Kale got a lot of those recruits because he was Kale Sanderson, and we had just watched him go undefeated in college and then go off and win an Olympic gold. And the guys he was recruiting literally just watched him do that. David Taylor just watched him do that and was like, this guy is now in my house and wants me to come at that point to Iowa State. You know, and David Taylor was at Iowa State and then left and went to Penn State with Kale. So I don't think he has to run it like a business. The NIL stuff, it is what it is. It's going to take care of itself, honestly. So I don't think he has to run it like a business, because if those guys don't buy in, then you're not putting the shoes on, you're not putting the orange singlet on, and you're not wrestling. This is what it is. Like there's not a lot of programs that you have to really run like a business. I don't feel Penn State doesn't have to run like a business. It really does not. Those guys certainly get NIL offers and they have NIL deals and they're making money. Kale's not part of that. He probably doesn't want to be part of that.
Yeah, if you're a kid and you're asking, what are you going to give me? He doesn't want you.
No.
And,
no.
You know,
so it's like the old school Alabama.
Yeah, like Nick Saban. Yeah, Nick Saban doesn't give it. He and that's probably why he retired.
Right, they're here to create winners, not money makers.
Yeah, that's not the mentality. You know, I told Coleman Scott straight up. That's where my son chose to go with Coleman at UNC. I told Coleman, I said, Coleman, I'm going to be honest with you. If John Smith came to Downey, California, and came through my front doors to recruit my son, it didn't matter if he flipped me off and kicked me in the ball. I would have said yes. and Coleman said, you know what, Eddie? That's exactly what I did. He said, you know, John Smith came in and he knew right away that if John Smith came, they were going to say yes. And
when John Smith came to Easton to recruit Jordan Oliver, everybody knew. We all knew.
We got a good question here from Matthew to kind of end out the show. He says, out of these three, who goes into coaching next? Kyle Dake, JB, or Snyder?
Ooh, that's good.
Jordan Burroughs is last on that list.
I agree with that.
Well, he's come out and said, right? That
I know that because I've talked to him about it. Like
he's like, I know.
I know that. I think that Kyle Dake is probably higher up on that list. I think it's probably Dake, Snyder, Burroughs. And that the distance between, like I said, between Kyle Snyder and Burroughs of being a coach is so far. It's a very wide gap. Because Jordan doesn't want to be a college coach. You know, we talked at NCAAs and he doesn't want to do it. It's just not in the plan for him right now. I think the only thing that would ever get him to do it is if he coached his son or coached his daughter, right? And his daughter is probably going to be an Olympic freaking gymnast. That girl's amazing. So yeah, like only if he was coaching his kids, I think is the only way that I see it happening. Kyle Snyder, I think, would definitely want to be a coach. I could see maybe he becomes the next guy at Ohio State, possibly when Tom Ryan's done. I think if Tom Ryan left tomorrow, Jay Jaggers is the guy. I honestly think Jay Jaggers would probably be the guy before Kyle Snyder as well. Even if Snyder was up for the job, they'd probably still go with Jaggers. Snyder would probably be an assistant and come in, you know, and be with Logan Stieber. But yeah, I think of all those guys, I think it's Kyle Dake, and mostly because of the David Taylor hire. Because David and Kyle are very close. I don't know if Dake is going to Oklahoma State. It's certainly something that people are talking about.
A lot of people say,
but I don't know if he'll make that move. He could ultimately stay at Penn State and take Jimmy Kennedy's position that Jimmy Kennedy just left at Penn State to go to Oklahoma State. So, you know, Penn State has an opening right now where they could put a guy in on the coaching staff with Jimmy Kennedy leaving. So, but yeah, I think Kyle Dake is number one on that list. Snyder would be number two, and you know, Burroughs is doing some club coaching, working with some kids and doing camps and stuff like that. But he wants to own his own training facility, I believe, and have his own training facility and kind of go that type of coach route, if anything.
Well, let me ask you this, because I've had 3 text messages, and if I don't, and they're all the same. If I don't ask you this question, I will be yelled at.
Yeah, Ryan's getting a lot of questions today. Boomtown has another question after.
Okay.
So.
Well, it's probably the same question. Do you think that any of the team will go into the portal after meeting with David today?
No.
I don't see it either. I don't even know why that's a question.
Most of them were there. I believe the whole team might have been there today, honestly. I know that there was a very strong push for the team to have Coleman.
Yes.
I know there were a lot of guys that were like, I want to wrestle for Coleman. Coleman's our guy. He's a
Yes.
cowboy. He's a cowboy. He's a cowboy. But I don't see them leaving.
I don't see it either. And we
If
love
it happens,
Coleman.
it happens. But yeah, like I just don't see it happening. I really don't see it happening. And you know, David Taylor's the guy, man. He's the guy. He's going to bring a lot to that program, and it really shakes things up. And that's what John wanted. That's what Chad, their director of athletics, wanted. That's what the Paycom CEO Chad Richardson. That's what That's what essentially a lot of them wanted. While obviously it was kind of split. There were people that wanted Coleman to be the next head coach. There were a lot of people that also wanted David Taylor to be the next head coach, and the admin essentially won out.
And then
any last go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, Rick Flores says kids want to be a part of a program that they can learn off their coach. And then Boomtown says, can David Taylor deal with wrestler drama, more of the parents' drama that will happen behind closed doors?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to have to deal with a lot of it. Because winning cures all. They're winning. There's not a lot of drama.
Best deodorant ever.
That's pretty fair.
You know what I mean? Like if they're winning, then and let's face it, everybody already expects him, like I said, to be Kale 2.0 and for them to win a title in the next couple of years. That's going to take a lot. I mean,
a lot.
The Oklahoma State came in 10th this year. They were 16 points away from taking second place. Second place was 80 points away from Penn State, who was in first place.
It's crazy.
So, like let's be serious. There's a lot of points to catch up there, right? There's damn near 100 points to catch up to Penn State. So, but no, I don't think that the parent drama is really going to be a thing. I from what I've seen, a lot of these people are embracing David Taylor coming in there. There's always going to be some dissent with any decision that is made, but there's also going to be people that wrap both arms around him and say, listen, you're our coach, lead us to victory. And that's what he was brought there to do. He wasn't brought there to put up with parent drama or put up with NIL BS or to put up with guys partying and wanting to be out. If that's what you want to do, then you're not part of his program is essentially what I'm seeing, because he is going to bring that same type of energy that Kale has at Penn State. There's going to be overlap, but it's also going to be David Taylor's program. It's going to be Thomas Gilman's program, Jimmy Kennedy's program. And then whoever else they decide to hire to bring in for the RTC or for those other assistant jobs or director of recruiting, those guys are going to be looking for a certain type of kid that wants to buy into that from start to finish and understands there's not a lot of wiggle room. There's basically no wiggle room. Either you're here or you're not.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me put a bow on this show. I want to thank you again. There is one other matter on the docket, and that is at midnight Pacific time, 3:00 Eastern. There is a tournament, last chance qualifiers in Istanbul, Turkey. And the USA has 2 spots that they're trying to qualify, 65 and 57, 2, incredibly tough spots. Also happens, someone, your brother, wrestling from Puerto Rico, is wrestling in this tournament. How difficult is this tournament? What would you quantify it? I mean, we all know the Jordan Oliver, finally makes a team and didn't qualify. What are we in for tonight?
It's rough. I am not gonna no sugarcoating whatsoever. It's tough. It really is. It's a tough tournament to win. It's a tough tournament to place top 3 in. Zane Rutherford has a tough draw. I mean, everybody in wrestling wants to say, I am the tough draw, whatever. Well, okay. There's a lot of killers on the other side of you being the tough draw here, and we have not qualified 65 kilograms at the Olympics in, I think, the last 3. I think Frank Molinaro may have been the last guy to do it in 2012, 2016. So it's not easy. It is not easy to do. Spencer Lee has a really good draw. I feel like he can certainly place top 3. He has a match that he can certainly win right off the bat, as does Zane. But Zane's on a tougher part of the bracket. 65, they always really stack the bracket where one side is a murderer's row, and just so happens that USA always ends up on that freaking
They
side.
really don't give a shit.
No, they really
guys,
don't.
It
They
almost
really,
doesn't-
really don't.
they throw everyone in this hodgepodge meat grinder. Sonny has Mexico first round. A match that I was really interested in seeing, because if he beats the Venezuelan, he has the Mexican young man to make the Olympics. That didn't happen, so I'm really happy that we get to see this match. Other than that, man, I just want to thank you for coming on.
Anytime.
I've got a ton of texts. Everyone loves you. You just have that calming voice. I don't know what it is, but let's say thanks, Eddie Money. Any last words, man? Any last words?
No, thanks for coming on and being our last minute fourth for the show.
Happy to do it, man. Anytime. You guys call me up, you got me. Eddie Money, you got my number. Shoot me a text whenever you want. I'll make it happen.
Hakatomi Plaza.
Great show. I learned a lot, actually.
Yeah, very good stuff. Just happy to call you a friend. And
it was good to see you in Kansas City. I didn't even realize I was gonna see you.
Yeah, but I mean, it was touch and go there for a while. Sonny got in. Not happy with his performance, but man, let me tell you, if they had the NCAAs in Kansas City every year, I wouldn't be mad at it. I wouldn't be mad at it. That was a very, very cool experience.
It's not going to be very fun in Philly, but Kansas City was on point.
Matthew Rocha also appreciates you coming on today. The guy who was basically asked all the questions.
Yeah, Matt's a UNC guy. He's connected. He's much like you, very involved and has knowledge across the board in all sports.
Matt, hit me up on Twitter, man. Anytime. I'll answer any questions you got.
Boomtown also said, "Go Sonny. Let's go to Colombia and wrestle."
Yeah, Sonny will be at the U23 Pan Ams in Colombia, and Boomer is
very excited
about that. So again, thank you, Ryan. Thanks for everyone watching. I hope we gave you some good information tonight. Rafa and Jay, we hope you enjoy Justin Timberlake. Don't throw your underwear on stage. It'd be very embarrassing. But again, thank you guys, everyone, for joining us. Thanks for everyone here. We love you, and good night.